But a refresh can do wonderful things. Trademark Kenny. You can't quite kill Kenny yet. Port Adelaide get back on the winners list. An upset over the Giants in Canberra. And a month of losing. They were sick of getting the L rather than the W. And so that is a gutsy win on a cold night in Canberra.
Alrighty, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. As always, my name's Dave and thank you for joining us over YouTube, Spotify, whatever for your proclivities. It's a wonderful change to recent times to be on this podcast as your Port Adelaide Footy Club overcame the odds, having gone in as significant underdogs. They ground out a result as strange but as joyous as the Allied defence of Castle Itter in Austria during the final days of World War II. Have fun Googling that one. It's a really fun story. 7-8-50 to our 9-12-66 was the final in frigid, cold conditions in our nation's capital. Jamie, good evening, mate. Isn't it just fucking wonderful to be talking about a win again? I think it's North Melbourne was the last time we did this, and that one wasn't that much fun. So this one's as scrappy, but a lot more fun, I believe.
Dave, how you going? Yes, we get to talk about a win and how satisfying it was. Hello to everyone listening and watching as well, whatever your proclivities may be, like Dave said before. Yeah, that North Melbourne game seems like an age ago. A lot of the anger still lies within, but hey, we've got another win to delve into and to enjoy for the time being, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. As I said, it was scrappy, and scoreline and everything might exude similar sentiments to the North Melbourne one, but I think with the fact that this is a GWS side that we're going into this year with top four aspirations, they might be slipping away a little bit. Not that this is a GWS podcast, but they've got some issues that are being talked about a little bit as to how they run about their games. And but yeah, this is a much better side that we're coming up against, and it was away from home. It's a home game for them, but kind of away for them as well. But it's a lot tougher test for us than the North Melbourne game is on paper, and we went into the game with a plan a plan of attack, plan of attack and defense, and how we were going to attack the ball, how we were going to set up around the ball, and everything was just so impressive. Some little whispers of Hinkley masterclass on Twitter, both maybe somewhat facetious, but also genuinely, giving credit to the effort that went into preparing the players for the game. But ultimately,
I think SEN had him listed as the coach in their team of the week this week. So that'll rile up a few people, I'm sure.
Yeah. Coach of the week, Ken Hinkley, according to SEN. And look, there's a fair bit of credence to that in how the game was set up, and the coaching staff should be given their credit. But I think, one of the main things is the application of the players out there in the field to that plan, because I think we've seen decent plans at times, or at least an idea of a plan, but we've just had such poor execution. And whether that's, again, we've talked about it in the mid-year review and at different times this year, whether that's just lack of trust in the game plan and lack of understanding of what's going on, all those subconscious ideas of not feeling fluid with the game plan can seep into why we're one of the worst turnover and clanger teams in the competition. But this game, we just shade the turnover and clanger battle and ultimately end up winning it in a close one. But again, the players executed well. The pressure was good. We still lost contested ball. GWS had a lot more tackle numbers, but the actual the eye test on the field was a team like when Port Adelaide had to go and tackle or give pressure, they did, and they and it was a bit back and forth as well. But we just set up around the ball well and restrict. GWS just didn't really have a plan of attack, considering they did have good players all over the field. Sam Taylor locking down Georgiades reasonably well. That was a really intriguing battle to watch. But we kind of locked down their forwards as well. Coleman medalist and Jesse Hogan, and then in the middle, kind of just won the battle. They tried to tag Zach Butters, but they weren't able to do it. So yeah, we just won key battles, and I'm not saying we won the battle at the forward end against Sam Taylor, but we kind of, he had so much work to do on Mitch Georgiades. It did open up a little bit. It was scrappy, but it opened up some avenues for ultimately the smaller forwards. Really, if Jeremy Finlayson hadn't had a crisis of confidence. Maybe he has a better day as well. But yeah, it was just a game where we just edged the battles. It was scrappy, so it's not big wins, but we edged the battles against a reasonable team, and I think that's really, really impressive. And not wanting to overreact and book grand final tickets, as I kind of joked about in a reel on the weekend.
Right,
but,
you did too.
I'm just impressed that it at least shows that there's some kind of fight and game plan to work towards as we work through the back end of the season, and see if we can just get a few more scalps. Because as we said in the mid-year review, or maybe in the squad show, we don't own our draft picks, so we might as well just play out the season as best as possible and see where we end up.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, they've got nothing else to play for except for pride. And if they play with enough pride, then who knows? Stranger things may have happened. Last year was somewhat of an example of that. And I've said it a few times now. Like, the season is not done for in the eyes of an elite sporting organization. So of course they're going to reset and they're going to go for broke. The game itself has drawn a lot of ire of the average footy fan for its scrappy nature, but it's easy to say for other people who, unlike Port Adelaide fans, we need a win and we'll take it anywhere we can, and we can draw positives from it. Of course, sometimes you just need to scrap out a win, whether it be against the St Kilda last year after the Brisbane fiasco, and you're on their deck at Marvel in that instance, and they're trying to drag you down to their level, and you've just got to scratch your way out of it. It doesn't mean that that's how every game is going to be played, and hopefully we win a fair chunk of the next lot of games that we have. It doesn't mean they're all going to play out that way, but if you are in a scrap, if you find yourself in a scrap, you have to work your way through it. And I guess that for Port Adelaide fans, that's the most pleasing part about it. The Giants are in their own kind of world of pain at the moment, very inconsistent. And take this win or GWS what you will, but at half time when we're down, the average footy fan, and we were texting throughout the night, it's just, how do you feel? It's like, yeah, we've been competitive. Some things paid off, some things didn't. We had to absorb a bit of pressure in that second quarter, particularly. But at the end of the day, we're just like, well, what does any of it count for at halftime? This is knowing that our second halves have been pretty poor, and more specifically, our last quarters have been terrible. So to come out after half time and clearly be the dominant side was very, very pleasing, regardless of who the opposition is, where they are in the season at the moment. Just the fact that we had a plan, we stuck to it, we ground it out, and yeah, we won the last quarter, which was fantastic. And in all honesty, we should have probably won. We probably should have doubled the margin, to be honest, and that's not even being ridiculous. We squandered a lot of chances, and we kept them scoreless for a quarter, which I messaged you. What was it, a day or two later, just saying that in all the I don't know, not speculation. Well, just in the midst of frustration at the fact that we couldn't take advantage of score in the third quarter, I was completely oblivious to the fact that we'd held them scoreless. And funnily enough, I didn't see a lot of Ken detractors pointing out their goalless quarter. It'd be interesting to actually look into that on the opposite side of things, because whenever we have a goalless quarter, it certainly gets highlighted in Port social media circles. But yeah, just the ominous nature of our second halves. I didn't even let myself look at GWS score, just oblivious to the fact we held them scoreless, and we were putting in all the hard work, not quite getting the reward for it.
Yeah, it was 0-0 for them to our 1-4 in the third quarter. That's probably what made it less noticeable, is because we were so frustrated by the fact that we knew we were dominating the forward half game. Like, it was like, constantly like 70%-ish like time in forward half for Port Adelaide in that third quarter, and much of the fourth quarter as well. GWS had a couple of little pushes in the fourth quarter, but ultimately it didn't really amount to much. But yeah, I think that's why. Like I knew it at the time because the commentators did make brief mention of the fact GWS hadn't scored at some point during the third quarter, and just kind of made me start thinking about it because I was expecting them to get that one out the back, right at the back end of the third quarter. That's what I was thinking. But then, yeah, that we ended up holding them scoreless, and for the final quarter, I mean, they kicked one goal forward to our 3-1, so we were able to finally take a little bit of advantage. It still was tight, and it took until those last few minutes. And indeed, like the Joe Richards sealer with, a couple minutes to go, it really made us like, I didn't feel comfortable still because I knew that because GWS had that little push after Murray's and Wines had scored. They kicked a couple of points and got it within 2 kicks. I think it was 11 points at one point. And so, and with three or whatever minutes to go, I was like, if they get one, and then then they get this next center bounce. It's going to flip quickly. And I was, doom scenarioing everything as I do.
Well, rightfully so, because as a Port Adelaide fan group, we've rightfully lost trust in our team in recent times with how they finish games off. So again, like I was impressed with the endeavor and particularly the defensive integrity across the night in the third quarter. But yeah, like you said, even in the fourth quarter, it's kind of like, when is this going to stop and when are they going to inevitably run over the top? I think at every break I was down in the doldrums because I'm this is good, but when's it going? Like, how long is it going to take? Um, and it wasn't until, I mean, Richard's goal was fan bloody tastic, but the Murray's goal, there were signs of breaking of backs. There are signs that we were breaking their back a little
Yeah.
bit, and we haven't seen that for a little while. Grounding out a win to break the opposition's back, and then kind of just get that margin that you probably see fit at the end of the night. Like I said, it probably should have been doubled, but we deserved a 3-goal win. I think in the end, with the way that we played it out. And you mentioned the statistics before, and not to just like identify any in particular, but what I'm seeing here is that in a lot of the statistics, to be honest, key team-based statistics, we've either hit our average, season average, or we've gone above it. And in some regards, GWS did too. Across the board, it's fairly even across a lot of these statistical markers, and it's just who took their moments. But from a competitive point of view, it's good to see on this sheet here that we actually performed above some of those statistics where we're sitting, and what we put out on the weekend is probably where we'd like our baseline to be, but it just hasn't been the case. So to push ahead in some of these statistics is again another promising sign. Who knows what will happen in future weeks? We can worry about that down the track. But at the end of the day, they went with the plan, they executed, and we come home with the 4 points to break what seemed like a drawn out Brisbane fiasco. So what happened last year in one game, it just kind of seemed like a whole month of that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it.
Which I'm certainly happy to come out the other end of.
Yeah, and hopefully it continues a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, speaking of some of those stats before I'm looking forward to talking about the defense in a moment when we get to the lines. But well, just first on like the score and like the winning margin. It was an interesting X score game in which we were, I think, 2.5 points above X score, whereas GWS were just like half a point above. So it was very, very close to what kind of X score was saying is more or less the result based on what, scoring opportunities and everything, which was fun. And it was very, very fun to see Ken Hinkley get X score questions in the post-match presser.
I was going to say that. Yeah, they actually brought it up.
Yeah, I was sitting there just very relieved, and then when I heard X score get brought up, I was like, "Oh my god, this is just a night for me!"
Yeah, because he was right. He's like, Ollie Wines from 50 meters, Joe Richards deep in the pocket. You're expecting a low score there, and then some of the others who are right front or kickable, you're probably expecting another way. So swings and
because I think
roundabouts.
Finlayson and Darcy Byrne-Jones had quite significant negative X scores on for their personal X score. And I'm like, Darcy Byrne-Jones, I think, had like half chances, but I guess they were like, the X score is just like, oh, if you've got, because there was one
That's
where the ball
interesting.
kind of tumbled forward and he kind of tried to gather it and kick it like it was just like could have been a soccer opportunity, but I guess X score might have looked. I'd have to go back and actually look at where Darcy Byrne-Jones. I just don't remember him having that many opportunities to have a significantly negative X score, but they might have recognised that one as like players sometimes do make an opportunity from that situation. So, but yeah, very fun to see Ken both talk about it and be like, oh, I'm not a big fan of X score, because I understand that X score is just like one metric to the whole kind of incredibly complex medley that is understanding an AFL football game. And so I appreciated how he both was like, yeah, this doesn't actually matter because real world it's just but also he understood how X score works based on how he talked about it, which was lots of fun. Yeah, because X score, as we saw on the Brisbane Adelaide game on Friday night, was very, very lopsided to what it actually ended up being. But,
and when we've certainly like I said to you on
it.
that night as well, we've definitely seen our fair share of those lopsided X scores. So nice that what was the final score in our match is fairly reflective of what it was expected to be.
Yeah.
But still would have liked a couple of more though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple more would have been nice. Yeah, especially I think Willie could have had a bag of 4, but let's leave that to the forward line chat. But I'm really excited to get to the lines. The defensive effort was quite incredible. I think there was a couple outlier, like just moments of defensive breakdown and positioning, which led to maybe like 2 of their goals. But overall, the effort, I think it became more highlighted to me because of how close it was. It was just like, we're doing so well, but then this one little breakdown happens. I think Aaliyah was out of position at one point and kind of cheated to try to do something. And I don't have the specific example in front of me, but there was just a couple of moments. But beyond that, we held them to their efficiency inside 50. Just scrolling up through my notes, like they're averaging almost 50% efficiency inside 50, and they were down to 32.7 in this game, whereas we were up to 47.1 up our end. So we drastically beat that. But just on the defensive side of it, considering we went in quite a lot taller than we have for most of the year with playing with Zach Thatcher and Aaliyah. At times, when the ball came to ground, he started getting a little bit worried, and that's maybe where a goal or 2 came from. But overall, I think, just talking about the defense, like Jesse Hogan did kick his 2 goals, but they both came from small forward opportunities. Like we stopped him doing what he does.
Yeah, like chaos.
Yeah, like the one where he came through and just booted it through it was like a cross into the box goal, like his first one.
Yeah.
And then the second one, which I think was their last goal of the game, like early in the 4th quarter, where he gets a handball receive and snaps around the body and just goes through. Like, he's a talented player.
Well, and that was to bring the score to within a point, I think it was at that stage. There and thereabouts. So,
yes, and
like we mentioned earlier, you're kind of waiting for the avalanche to come a little bit, and for them to get the first goal of the quarter, just compounding the emotions from the third term, and positive signs. But like with Riccardi and Hogan getting 2 each, you're probably going, is that par heading into the game? When you're talking about their efficiency inside 50, and that's scores per inside 50, not necessarily goals, but when it's at 50% for them, and they're down to just under 33%. Riccardi, one of his being just a really interesting ruck infringement where Rosie got in the way, and then even more surprisingly enough, we got our own back, which they're rare in the first place, but even rarer to get 2 in the same game on either end of the field. I love that one with Ollie, though.
It's just like not knowing that Ollie was up for ruck, and it's just like that's kind of where that's an interesting
I was like, was that kind of deliberate?
Yeah, but they do have to nominate. So someone has to. The word is out there every time.
Yeah.
So it's just like you haven't heard. But if you're in the chaos of an AFL game, if you're not sure who's nominating, and Ollie Wines is around stoppage, you're like generally like, I'm going to block the run of Ollie Wines to stoppage, and it's just like you just haven't heard that little umpire call or whoever when he nominated, and
Hmm.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you can take advantage of, and like Ollie Wines, it's not like he takes too many rucks, but occasionally he does. So, and it's particularly in a forward 50
Mm.
situation, and anyway, that's at the other end. But yeah, I think even the commentators made note of like when Riccardi did kick that goal that finally got them scoring, which we kept them completely scoreless up until what 9 minutes into 9 minutes to go in that first quarter when they do get their free kick, and I think Derm in commentary kind of goes, "Well, you're not going to be able to rely on that all night."
Yes. Yeah,
um,
free kicks and yeah, and stoppage in the forward 50. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I know. Well, yeah, fair call from Dermot. It was right.
it
And in the
was.
end they couldn't.
Yeah.
Um, so when you consider that Hogan's two goals were from general play,
Mm.
One of Riccardi's was, yeah, you mentioned Alir, who had a bit of an off night in some regards.
He would
Just
probably be my
he's
third
a pretty
best.
high risk
Hmm.
type defender. Yeah, yeah,
Out of the
yeah,
three, if I
yeah.
was
I
going to
think
rank
that's fair to
them,
say. He was a
um,
bit loose.
based on output expected as well.
Hmm.
Like Zerk Thatcher's still shaking off some rust, but I'm not expecting him to be playing at all Australian level as I am Alir generally every week. So it's a high
Still
bar
think
we have
he's
for him.
performed well across his two games.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Just super accountable, doing the job.
Hmm.
Um, but ultimately, we have to talk about Asava. Like he's obviously my watch. He's probably your. Oh, sorry, my spotlight.
Yep.
He's probably yours. He's probably going to feature later. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? We'll find out when we get there. But
Mhm.
um, where to start? Like just
I mean,
your
speaking of
club is always
accountable
criticized,
for
but
a player that has
yeah,
had
yeah.
such uh, criticism and both expectation and non-expectation. Like people are like, oh, we brought him in, he better do good, but also we don't expect him to do good. It's like this weird vibe that's always been around
Yeah.
Asava, but he just comes in and he knows that he's not the most talented bloke by hand or foot, but he's accountable regardless and throws his body around and gets into situations and occasionally defies expectation in how he plays.
Hmm. No, we certainly did on the
Hmm.
weekend, and a bit of the chat going into the game was the fact that Jesse Hogan was kept goalless against Richmond. So, good luck to Port Adelaide because the reigning Coleman medalist isn't going to let that happen twice in a row. And he didn't, but he was forced to get his goals in a different way,
Hmm.
and Asava played a big part in that. And again, as always, shout out to our Patreon members. Thanks for tuning into our squad show.
Hmm.
We discussed that, like, once we got the team sheet, that perhaps Asava wasn't going to be shifted forward as a kind of a play with Lord going out. Perhaps he was going to stay back because they still had a few tools if you include Callum Brown, and
Hmm.
that's the way it ended up. And the big bodies went head to head for most of the night. Zerk Thatcher did his thing to support. Alir was a little bit off, like we've said, but I mean, Alir still led the spoils by far. So, not a terrible game by any stretch, but Asava just, he's kind of he pieced some of his more positive attributes all together.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, he had an improved game on some of his opportunities for improvement, I guess you could say. And the fact that everyone kind of is acknowledging that, I think speaks volumes. And it's a bit harsh on a guy, like you said, who, you bring him into a club, he has to do well. Um,
Yeah.
for the money that you're paying him.
Hmm.
But then also, like you said, no one expects him to do well. So it's this weird situation for him to be in. But for me, throughout the whole season, I've just wanted him to keep it simple, stay in his lane, and just build on that week by week. And I think by and large he has, and it
Yeah.
kind of stood out on the weekend because, like I said, it all kind of pieced together when it was his moment to go. His intercept marking has been a real feature. We
Mm.
spoke about early in that Geelong game, even like he was kind of getting picked on by the commentary team initially, and then in the end they're like, "Oh no, he's actually keeping Dangerfield fairly like pretty
Yeah.
accountable, and he's one of the best on in his own right." That was the early stages of the game,
Mm.
lamenting obviously how it turned out. But Super impressed. I obviously hope it's something to build on, and I absolutely loved him backing up in the ruck because
Yeah.
while it was a three-tool defensive system against somewhat of a three-tool forward setup in GWS, rotations happen, and you don't want to be top heavy for too long.
Mm,
And he's a strong guy. He has ruck experience with Geelong. He's done it very, very marginally last year, but it's a great option to have because at the end of the day, he's usually going into ruck because their main ruckman's out, and
mm,
he's not resting forward. So Zerk Thatcher and Aaliyah can kind of hold sway for the time period. It obviously wasn't a lot, but I loved it.
yeah.
I love again just trying things out, which is good, and um, it helped with his confidence a bit. He just kept involved. He kept popping up, and he kept popping up at crucial stages too.
Hmm. There's a thing to be said about getting guys just into the game more. Um, it happens in when they talk about the NFL when trying to move guys around, like whether it be receivers trying to get them in the like if someone's getting locked down, let's just try to move the magnets around a little bit just to try to and not that it's not
Hmm.
easy to get into the game, but you can build his confidence even more as far as his value and it's just a valuable thing for an AFL side to have is like more flexibility in that ruck rotation. If you've got more guys that you trust to be able to go in there and take, five chop outs in a game, you can spread the load for those guys, then and then yeah, again, it gets guys involved in the game. Getting guys just some leather on hand or whatever and whatever it may be is just a good thing to do. And yeah, I loved his game. I think we've said it before. I can't think of which game, and I feel like we've said is this one of Asava's best games support, and I think he had another one of them. Whatever game that was, I think he had another one of them this weekend.
Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty safe to say I think from based on your little tease and knowing how my votes are looking, that his stats will come up later on. So we can leave a few of those for then. But he had a great game. Another one, I mean, Bergman as kind of as the other real great interceptor down back, like both of them having both like
Hmm.
and his rebound game as well. Like Bergman had an incredible game, I think, as well. And like so when you go Asava's playing some of his best footy, Bergman's like both taking the intercept marks, some contested, then having the rebound out of the back line, which complements some of the more run off halfback that you've got whether it be Rosie or Farrell or whoever, and then that allows it that like the fact that we're talking about Leah having a down game and we still held a team to 7 goals 8. That's a good
Hmm.
thing. Like we want.
Including a scoreless quarter as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, the Hinkley special on the other side. Yeah, I say that facetiously. I just the Hinkley special thing's always been so funny to me when you actually look at the stats of scoreless quarters.
Well, and it's been debunked. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like all teams have these at some point, but yeah, it's the why is this happening to me thing that
To
Port
me,
that
yeah.
Port fans have done over the years. But yeah, I think that was like a really the three tools defense has been something that we're a little bit apprehensive about because we don't know how it didn't work great at times last year when we tried them all, but they've all got 18 months in the Port Adelaide system now, and you just saw a little bit of what can work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it might be situational. We'll see going forward, but this is a good,
Yeah.
very very good test for me. Like a full now we've got some data to how it can work against a very very we're forgetting like we're talking about like GWS like they're a little bit, but this is a team that was going into this year with flag aspirations. Whether they're that good, we don't know. They're still in the top 8, but yeah, we beat a fairly,
Hmm.
fairly good forward line that we're at reasonable strength. I'm trying to think right now. Like I don't think there's anyone missing. I mean, do you count Jake Stringer at this point? I don't count him as an integral part of their side yet because he hasn't ingratiated himself as an integral part of their side yet. So when they've got and I'm trying to think of it. Cadman was playing. He's
Well, I think Toby Green, obviously getting the huge corky, it
yeah. Well,
assisted.
yes,
Who
yeah,
knows what impact he would have had across the whole game? And then alternatively, Brent Daniels coming back in was pegged as a sub, which was a surprise to me
yeah.
because I would have thought someone like that, you're just giving a whole game. Without studying their injury list forensically, which we would have last week, like I think their spine, Briggs, which, we'll talk about the midfield soon. Briggs being out offered an opportunity in the midfield, but
Yeah.
still sticking on the defense. Like, yeah, we had Farrell and Sin come back in, as well as who was the other in for this game?
Oh, for us,
Yeah,
Radaglia was back. That was
Bradigalia, of
yeah.
course. So three defenders back into our defensive line. What I was thinking though in the aftermath is it's no surprise to me that we played a better, more rounded game with three of our first choice players in. And clearly they
Mhm.
peg Sin as a first choice player because they've dropped a Logan Evans who, in my opinion, didn't do a lot wrong. And you would think they're probably even Stevens. And
Oh, also dropped
look, I,
Rory
I think
Atkins.
Sin, yeah, who had a great game against Fremantle and
Yeah.
got in votes. So yeah, like it is. While there's a lot going on involved with Port Adelaide at the moment, yeah, it does help to have your better players on the park.
Hmm.
Like clearly, Farrell impacted, Radigalia impacted, surprisingly.
Mm.
Sin, like I said, he had some moments, but ultimately he didn't really have a lot to say. But some of his work off the ball, to the layman, we might not know. But structure, all of these things, they just filter down across the whole field. And
Mm.
yeah, it was pleasing to see that our defensive line, which is our best line still, I think, across the whole season, really, really switched it on. And it does certainly help having that assistance from up the ground. I thought from a team defensive point of view, we got our front half game going. We got like our forward press game going a lot better. And
Mm.
isn't it surprising how that filters down the other way? We're having three tall defenders. You need to defend up the ground because you need to force dump kicks forward for the opposition because that's how, and Melbourne coming up this week will be a good test.
Hmm.
Like you're saying, will it work? Will we be a bit dynamic with our selections? Because yeah, Melbourne forever and a day have been wanting some taller forwards, and
Mm.
that could be an interesting situation. So again, it's going to be important from a team defensive point of view that our forwards are pressuring, our midfielders are setting up well, so that our tall defenders can, well, their loads are lightened because
Yeah.
they've been having to absorb a shitload recently.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned off the top that we finally just shaded a turnover battle. GWS
Mm,
at +2 on turnovers, and we've said all year like when we're terrible on turnovers and clangers is when we're generally losing. Like we're conceding a lot of score off turnover, and this was the first game, and God knows how long that I've looked and seen that we were +13 on scores on turnover, and it's been -30 to 40 to 50 in games we've reviewed over the past month. But we were we scored 5-5 from 35 from turnover to the 3-4 22, and the rest of the scores, it was they scored. We were very even from stoppage, so that it was really the turnover battle that was key as far as score sources. The difference in margin was basically turnover, and we won that battle for the day, and particularly the scores from turnover.
hmm
And so yeah, and that's we've been
It's modern
saying.
football,
Yeah.
baby.
And we've been saying all year, like the defenders are being let down by all of that shit that's going on. And so when we actually have, a marginal difference in turnover, it's not massive, but, as we've said, we've been -10 to some horrible gaudy numbers in
Mm.
turnover of recent
Well,
weeks.
and where you've been turning them over to
Yeah.
also plays a part, and there's been some horrific ones.
Yeah.
But if you're well drilled and well set up, uh, even in your attacking forays, yeah, you're probably less likely to give it up in compromising positions as well.
Hmm.
If you're
Yeah.
executing better, yeah, you're making better decisions. Yeah,
Yeah.
that game was proof.
Yeah. And there was just some, looking at the stats with an eye test stuff, just there was a little bit more focus is what I would the best describe it, and that's like
Hmm
all over the field. But yeah, I mean, particularly defense, like there was some really nice passages of team defense kind of play, like handball chains in the defensive. And I've criticised many times this year already when we get stuck in a handball sequence and invite pressure on ourselves because we're not actually doing anything with it. Because there's handballs and then there's handballs, and there's handballs that move the ball and there's handballs that just, you know, you go in a triangle and it actually doesn't go anywhere and then you invite pressure on yourself, which we saw a bit of that on the night. But there was a lot of moments of good team defense that quickly, you know, took the pressure off. And I was just really impressed with, like, even when we looked down, I mean, we've highlighted the likes of Asava and Miles Bergman, but even, you know, guys like I think Jace was reasonable. I had not great, but reasonable.
So do I.
Yeah, I think he had a reasonable game and just getting involved in that transition game as far as, and then in some defensive efforts as well. But yeah, again, we talked about in the mid-year review that the defensive line, despite the travails the team is having as a whole, is the numbers. They've considering how much they're dealing with. I think this is another example that them actually being our best line. They're still imperfect, and Aaliyah maybe was the one that got found out the most in going with the 3-tool system in this game, which is funny. But then he will learn from that. He's too good of a defender and too smart of a defender too. Yeah. And he still had some good numbers. Like he had 10 1%ers. He used the ball at almost 80%. He was on the ground for 100% of the time in those freezing cold conditions. So he had he just didn't have some of those moments that we, you know, and then it was also compounded by the fact he was one of their few goals was down to him being found out of position a little bit. So yeah, and we have a high bar for Aaliyah, so it's never like we're going, oh, you know, is his position in doubt? That's never the case. If Aaliyah's fit, he's playing. But it just shows that it's just almost, it makes it more impressive that Aaliyah looks maybe not the worst of the three, but the less impacted of the three when you've got guys like Osava that have been more maligned over the years, having a game like he did. So I'm just, really impressed with that effort. And long may it continue. I'd be interested to see going forward how the 3-tools works, because it's going to be situational at times, I think. But on the night, it worked incredibly well. And, you know, if we can keep developing that, then who knows? Because, I mean, we clearly got Zerk Thatcher in and Nasava in and started last year with the plan that they would all play together. So maybe we're going to finally see a little bit more success with that, as Asava has found more success as a Port Adelaide player.
Even before we had them, though, like they've still preferred Aaliyah to be on a small or a medium, because he can try and get his intercept game involved. Funnily enough, even Asava probably shaded him in that regard on the weekend. But you know, I remember the good qualifying final against Geelong a few years ago, and like we pantsed them at home.
Yeah.
And a lot was made about the fact that Aaliyah was actually, I think he was on, you know, Brian Myers or someone like that, or Gary Rowan.
Yeah, he was
Gary Rowan. Yeah,
Gary Rowan.
He wasn't on any of the tools when some of the chat going into that game was, you know, who's Aaliyah going to have to match up on, and well, I think we've acknowledged that both him and Radaglia are more athletic than probably what they get the credit for. But then Zerk Thatcher and Asava can take on some bigger bodies as well. So they may be tall, but there's still some attributes that we can work with. And at the end of the day, you know, how you use your rotations as well.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have anything more on the defense? You were happy to move to the midfield.
Let's move on.
Yes. The midfield, it's I'm really relatively pleased this week. I want to start, and I guess I'm just telling you where I'm starting here, but so hopefully you're okay with it. The Dante Vicentini versus you brought up Kieran Briggs being out, so it was kind of at the front of my mind from, you know, when you mentioned that 10 minutes ago or so. So I wanted to start with that. Nick Madden provided a reasonable battle for Vicentini, but I was impressed with what Vicentini did as well. I think it's one of those battles that was two inexperienced ruckmen, like 10 games between them, like, so going in, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So it's a battle of inexperience. So, but again, that evens it out. Like, where, you know, GWS might be going, well, if Briggs had played, well, we're going, well, if Jordan Sweet from last year had played, then it's a different battle as well. Like, so we're going in with, it's, you know, it's a wash there. So it's a battle of two inexperienced ruckmen. And I think Nick Madden actually provided a good battle, but I was reasonably happy. I think Vicentini shades it in a few areas. Nick Madden certainly didn't let himself down as a debutant, and credit to him. Both of them had reasonable pressure act numbers, but I think Sweet Vicentini kind of shaded the hitouts to advantage numbers. I think Nick Madden shaded the hitouts to win. So there's just like a very, very close battle, but which was fun. But I think overall around Vicentini had more support around him, in obviously with a all-time Zach Butters game. But yeah, I thought the ruck battle was intriguing, and I think Vicentini just outside of that did a lot of things right around the ground as well.
He sure did. Yeah, like you mentioned, one side's going, oh, well, if we had Briggs, da 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 da. And as part of my thoughts after the game, with that, like, for once in this patch of Byzantini games, but in like a good stretch of time, for once we had an opportunity to at least win that position,
Hmm.
which we haven't. Like, we didn't get, yeah, like you've just detailed, we didn't get an above and beyond advantage from the ruck position. It wasn't something that we could take full advantage of and
Mm.
tip the scales heavily in our favor. But it gave Visentini, yeah, a young player, an opportunity to win his position and just gain an extra bit of confidence, maybe display a few things that he's wanted to do but hasn't really had the opportunity to against a more experienced ruckman. But he also threatened forward too,
Mm.
which was good. He had 6 score involvements
Yeah.
to Madden's 1. So yeah, there's little differentials here and there, but I think Visentini won the position overall, and that's what it's all about. It's how many people on the field can win their positions, and generally, if your team and your players are winning their positions more than the other team, yeah, the score generally works in your favor as a whole, that is.
Mm.
So yeah, I was happy for him. Super happy that he just got to play his game. He didn't have to worry about negating an experienced ruckman
Yeah.
and copping it.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I'll say, like, I think Madden had a reasonable game for a debutant and certainly didn't let himself down.
Mm,
He didn't look overawed by the occasion, which I think actually works in Vicentini's advantage. He had a ruckman that came in with a reasonable level of confidence to engage in the battle, and maybe it helped Madden that he looked across the other side and was like, "Well, I'm going up against 10 gamer in my first game. Like, that's better than maybe going up
hmm
against a Tristan Cherry or any number of players that are out there."
Yeah.
But yeah, for Vicentini, it probably worked well that he had someone come in that wasn't overawed by the occasion, and there was a genuine battle there. But yeah, the 6 score involvements is really big. Um, it was both of them had a couple of clearances, but yeah, I just think Vicentini shades it. And again, this is one of those we said at the
Yep.
start. It's a scrappy game, so it wasn't none of the battles were won by large margins, but that you just got to win them. And overall, that's what lends yourself to getting a 16-point win at the end of the day. Um, the Butters effort was incredible. They tried to tag
hmm
him. They tried. Uh, didn't really work. So they
Fool
mentioned,
me once kind of stuff.
yeah.
Um, by the looks of things. And we discussed it on Thursday in our squad show. We knew that Bedford was gonna play a role.
Hmm.
How big that role was left to be seen. And from was it like the first ball up, very start of the game, they're already into each other, and
Hmm.
Butters is given his own back. So just small elevations in his game. They also brought up Rosie because they were, something that we didn't touch on in the defense was the unique allowance to rotate Rosie and Bergman between
Yeah.
midfield and half back, and they noted the fact that it's rare to have that rotation where it's usually midfield and half forward.
Hmm.
But with the form that Bergman's found himself in from a midfield point of view, it's just a rare luxury because we all know what Rosie can do in the midfield, and then yeah, they're going, oh, well, Butters, well, yeah, not really getting a hold of Butters, even though we're trying. And then Rosie gets a little bit of attention, and then it gets broken up by Bergman getting inserted in there. Drew is offering some attention the other way.
Yeah.
It was just a good nexus of um, different players offering a little bit and just kind of keeping GWS coaching staff busy, just
Yeah.
not really letting any of it settle for them. But to bring it back to Zach Butters, like how much more can you ask for while someone is trying to blanket him?
Mm.
And in recent occasions, not even just against Port Adelaide, Bedford will do a good job on some fairly established midfielders, and then he'll be able to get that cheeky goal or two himself. But
Yeah.
at the end of the night on Saturday, yeah, Butters ends up with what was it, 32 disposals, and it's probably safe to say the tag didn't really pay off. And since he's come back, he's got a little bit of attention, but I think, and Ken, I believe, mentioned it. Him and Connor have had to cop it a bit over the last couple of years. But each time they do, it's just a learning opportunity. And they're smart, proud players
Hmm.
who hate losing. They love winning. They love getting on top of the opposition. That just gives them an opportunity to level up at the end of the day. And that was a prime example of Butters just absolutely breaking through.
Yeah. It's a credit to, I mean, it's a credit to Butters. And I think we mentioned it. There was some commentary. I think there was a game weeks ago where the commentators mentioned, like, is it, and it might have been Rashudo actually, that said, like, is he taggable anymore? Like, has he reached that level that you can't really actually tag him? And I think
Mm.
everyone's capable of being tagged and the right, it depends on form and everything. Like, I mean, we always are proud Port fans. We talk about the Kane Corns job in the 2004 grand final, like against a Brownlow medalist, Norman Smith medalist. Like, it can be, but like, there's certain players when they get into the right, if they're in the right mindset, and Butters is kind of a very, very unique player. He's one that gets comparisons to some of the greats of yesteryear as well. So there's a certain skill type and a certain way a player plays that does make them. And Butters is just bounce off. He sometimes reminds me of like the old. You remember the old? Like, it might have been. I just remember the ads in the '90s about like Gavin Wanganeen being the rubber man. Like, he's just like you can't do it. Like, and like Butters has a bit of that. Like, there's
It
nothing.
is a bit like that.
Yeah, there's just something about the way he moves his body and shimmies and shakes that just makes it impossible to actually tag him, because he's still going to. And like when he's at his best, like, yes, he's had his trouble with tags as he's developed over the last 2 years, but he seems to have reached that level that, and if he's in form and his mindset is locked
Hmm.
in as he was, because he was putting the pressure on as well. Like when he didn't have some of his tackles, like he had a stand up tackle at one point where he's just locked up. I don't know who the fuck it was, but he just fucking pinned him standing up, and he's just got him. And it's just like, so Butters is doing it both ways as well. Like his pressure numbers were
Mm.
great, and
Yeah, there's
great
some
tackle.
good tackles across the board, like on the night.
Yeah,
One from him, a chase down. Willie had a chase down one as well.
yeah,
Asava, Hogan got a stoppage clearance inside GWS forward 50, and Radaglia was just like a leopard.
hmm,
So again, that athletic nature. There's some great tackles, and
yeah,
obviously Zach Butters just epitomizes some of that shit. The the thing is, he's just a relentless person.
hmm,
It just never gives in. And like his ground ball numbers, his clearance numbers, like yeah, when he's in that mode, what do you do? What do you do? Because he's just such an enigma. And again, it'll contribute to me needing a sick bucket if he does in fact leave,
yeah,
because he's tough, he's quick, he's smart, he's crafty, all the superlatives, but superlatives associated with each category of football, really.
hmm.
Um, the only thing he probably couldn't do is match up on a tall forward, but he'd give it a good
I
crack,
was gonna
I'm
say, I think
sure.
he'd find a way to climb up their back and like outmark them, or like
Yeah,
he'd be like a fucking cat
yeah.
crawling up your leg, like to get some food or something. He just like
Mm.
fucking yeah. He was in, I think it's like when you look at his numbers, and I'm sure we'll look at him later, like it's like it's sneaky one of his best games. This is not highlighted because it's a mid-season game. It's that cold, windy Wednesday at Stoke kind of shit. Like, it's not actually a game that's going to be
Yeah, yeah. It's
highlighted
that
too
time of the
often.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which, by the way, just I've hated the chat on the weekend about like, oh man, footy's in a bad state because all the games were like low scoring. Like, we had a few weeks ago when the weather was good, like there was high scoring games, gather, whether it be gather round or some other games earlier in the year, rounds where scoring was up, everything was great.
This
It gets in the
happens
dog
every
days of winter.
year.
It's the dog days of winter. Like, baseball talks about the dog days of summer. Like, there's a period in the middle of the season where it's just everything's gets a bit turgid because it's going through the routine, and then weather plays a part. We were playing in, I think, Alistair Lynch. I was about to say Simon Black. Still got that grand final in my mind, but yeah, another player from the grand final. Alistair Lynch pregame was like, it's apparently 7 degrees, feels like 3, and that was at the game start. So it's only going to get worse as the game goes on. You saw a couple of times. I think about Pepper at one point, who dropped a few marks, and I'll talk about him.
Oh, he did, didn't he, Peps?
Yeah. But there was a few times, and it wasn't just him, where you saw players like the ball hits their hand and it goes out of bounds, and you just see them like shaking their hand like that cold footy hitting.
Yeah, that slap.
Stuff.
Yeah.
You know what it's about. Like, it's just like when a cold leather Sharon hits your hand. Yes, it stings so much, and whether it be soccer has the same thing, but it's just like, yeah, weather conditions genuinely play a part. It doesn't matter, and people go, "Oh, they paid so much money to be a professional." It doesn't fucking matter. Like, it's like, it is cold, terrible conditions.
It happens every year.
Yeah,
happens every fucking year, and it's another talking point that it's tiresome for me.
And it's
because what happens is
very dumb.
We start
level stuff too. It's like it's
Yeah.
not very intelligent. Like Tom
Well,
Rockcliffe.
it's like, unless
It was showing a lack of intelligence.
Yeah.
Like him talking about going back to 16 teams
come on,
stuff.
Rocky.
Yeah.
2 divisions. That's another topic for another time. But what happens every year is we start at the end of summer in the warmest part of autumn, but even creeping still into summer now.
Mm-hmm.
Footy's perceptively good because it's more open. People can actually run, kick, mark, do all the flashy stuff. It's higher scoring. We get, is someone actually going to break the 100 goal mark because scoring's up again? And it's like, no, it's just autumn football.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move through the phases, and then we get to winter, and it always, like Craig McRae after the King's birthday match yesterday. He was on AFL 360 and they were talking about it a little. And I didn't listen to the whole interview, but he kind of said the same thing. He's like, we're in the middle of winter, like we're in winter now. It always gets more contested. Things happen a bit differently. The game's played a bit differently. You as a football club, you have to navigate these seasonal changes throughout a season. And then as we draw close to finals every year, the weather clears up, it warms up, and we get more free-flowing football. And by that stage, the better teams are generally playing better. So then that romanticism of, football's fucking great again. It's just like, well, they're just different types of football. And that's why we've discussed it in regards to the women's game over the last 18 months. Is you can put the skills and your perception of skills and whatnot, or the gap in skills, to one side. But like, where I know and I think you do too, find some enjoyment still is the fact that it is a bit of a contest. Well, I enjoy a contest. I enjoy an arm wrestle. I have never thought that a high scoring game automatically equates to a good game. And alternatively, I've never thought that a low scoring game automatically equates to a bad game of football. Sure, the connotations are there about this game, and this game wasn't a perfect game, but the same people who complain or want to, profess that the game is a contested game and we need to keep the contest, also lament games of football that are contest based. It's just different styles of football. That's the game that we love. Aussie rules. When it's warm, it's more free flowing. Just naturally, there's higher scores. When it's cold, when it's wet, it's more contested. You have to break through. And that's a mental challenge in its own right. And it's something that should be respected.
Yeah, no, I 100,000% agree. It's whatever sport it comes down to, whether it's it's always been I hate it, and I get it. Like, people that watch surface level, watch soccer, and don't understand why a 0-0 draw can be entertaining. But I've watched some 0-0 draws over the years that have been some of the best games of football you watch. It's just no team actually scored. And yeah, I can understand the people that want that, like, like candy gratification of a game, but like when you're actually
Yeah.
love a sport, you've seen.
TikTok brain.
Yeah, and even I, like when you get to a draw, it's just like, oh fuck, we should have won that, because look at all these, the fucking 5 chances Mo Salah had, and he got to get to someone gets a tackle in the last line, but then you begrudging, and then you've done that the other way, and you begrudgingly respect the fact that defender flew in with the tackle just at the perfect moment, and that's the same. This is a different thing, but this game had a lot of good tackling, some great intercept marking. Yes, there was some bad turnovers as well, but that's just part of football at this time of year, and yeah, in between this, we got like some great Bergman highlights. We just didn't have the one thing this game didn't have was a forward at either end really breaking open and having a classic forwards game. Everything in between lines was actually like quite good. I mean, on the midfield as well. I just wanted to make a note before I forget it. I've been talking about, and again, I don't think the midfield mix is anywhere close to a completed recipe, but Butters was at 80% of CBAs and Willem Drew was at 75%. So we finally, because I've talked about at times that we've had like maybe one or two that have been close, but that we had like a consistent mix of those two, and then it gets down to Bergman at 60, Ollie Wines at 50, Rosie at 25. So there was then to your point about the rotation of the others and some good movements of when to put Rosie going to a quarter of them. Yes, again, it wasn't a high scoring game, so the CBA percentage numbers. That's what you got to remember is like CBAs are predicated on how many goals are kicked. So
Goals,
yeah. We still, with what was a low scoring game, when we did go to the centre bounce, there was a bit more of a Butters being at four out of 5 of them, and Willem Drew being close to that as well. Kind of like they kind of there's a push and pull, a yin and yang of those two and what they can bring to the contest, and then you utilizing Bergman at certain times, or Wines at certain times. Both of those being at 50-60 is nice. And then Rosie, Boak was at one. Like there's just like a little mix of the others, but we at least had 2 guys that were pretty quintessential to the centre bounce, like the centre clearance game on the night. Not that there was too much, there wasn't any scores. There was fuck all scoring from centre bounce this game, but it was either stoppage or turnover. But we at least
but the representation was good. Like what you said. I feel like you look at our midfield and I think we genuinely won that line, which is nice to say. Yeah, you mentioned like our
very good
peripheral
opponent.
players, our star factor players. It was just a well-rounded game from our midfield. I thought, we've got to win. There's a bit of rose-colored glasses across everything at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we got a lot right. And again, it's probably playing into the plaudits that Ken is getting off the back end, whether you like it or not. Should it be Josh Carr getting the plaudits? Who knows?
It depends which week it is, doesn't it?
Yeah. It depends which ways the wind is going. But yeah, still would like Ollie Wines to just fucking absolutely tear someone a new one. But when Zach Butters is in that mode and being supported ably by everyone else, like you just sit back.
Yeah, see, the only thing really missing from the Butters stat sheet is like a goal. Like that's the one funny thing is like Butters often completes these games with a goal.
He hasn't really featured a lot in that regard.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Since he's come back.
But he's
Has he even kicked one? I don't even know if he has.
Fuck, that's actually a very, very good question. I might kind of sneaky search that as we're going, but I mean, that's the thing with Butters' game. Like, despite that, he's quickly raced himself into coaches' votes contention. Some of the Brownlow models have him in comfortably in the top 10 for the Brownlow.
Racing up.
Yeah, and this is a guy that missed the first 3 weeks of the season. He was back for the St Kilda game, wasn't he? Yes, he was. Yeah,
he was.
Yeah, so he missed the first 3 weeks of the season, but yeah, there's still often missing the opening 3 weeks of the season for a Brownlow contender can sometimes be, a death toll to your Brownlow chances. But and maybe that is, it's going to be interesting when it gets to the end of the year if he does play out the rest of the year at a reasonable level. If you get to the end of the year and go, geez, if you played those 3 games, maybe he pips whoever wins it in the end, because he's got himself in those conversations very quickly. And yeah, as you said, to at a point when we can't even be sure if he's kicked a goal yet. I can't think of one. I'm trying to Google as I go, but
I don't think he has.
Yeah, which is incredible. And whereas you've got Rosie kicking goals off of halfback, and Rosie arguably could have had a couple more in the night. He kicked the one.
Connor, just seal the deal.
That
Seal the
one when he
deal,
broke from
Connor.
that center clearance, where he just fucking raced through
Oh,
and like had it on the boot, and it just kind of just went left of the post instead of
oh,
obviously.
there were so many almost there were so many almost moments within this game. Um, the Farrell barrel as well came to mind, and
Hutto was
a
having a
lot of
great.
rosy
Hutto was
moments.
having a lot of fun. In the
Hutto, yeah, I quickly watched KO Mini before, and Hutto had a good commentary game.
yeah
I thought he definitely had his moments. If that was Dwayne, we'd probably have a segment just for that. So
yeah.
yeah, good on Hutto. Yeah, he had a good one. He was willing it the whole way.
Mhm.
But yeah, Connor, fucking seal the deal. But you're right, yeah, and it's helping kind of the portrayal of his game as a whole this season. He's up there in Brownlow contention in his own right,
Yeah,
as well as coaches' votes, because he's just found a way to level up his game,
mhm.
releasing the shackles a little bit because he's he's not copping a hard tag. He's getting meters gained. He's getting involved. His disposals numbers haven't dropped. If anything, they've gotten better, and he's still
Yeah.
featuring on the score sheet. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah,
He
super
looks like he's
impressed with
yeah.
our captains.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean Rosie himself. I mean, yeah, it's funny because he can feature in any line we talk about, preferably because we've talked about
Yeah,
the defense and then we're talking about the midfield, and he's featured there, and then yeah, he's kicking goals reasonably.
that's why it's what irks me. Obviously, this has been brought up a few times, but it's what irks me about the criticism predominantly from our own fan base in regards to Connor Rosie, like him and Zach Butters for that. We're talking about guys in their mid 20s,
Hmm.
and they've only just touched their mid 20s. The criticism that gets put forward, and it's like you're just not, in my opinion, you're just this hyper criticism just disallows you to enjoy somewhat of a unicorn that Rosie is, like we just said. He can play every line on the ground,
Hmm.
and he can make an impact on every line of the ground. On top of his natural footballing ability, it's just a fantastic peg to put in our board.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, I've said it before. I lie on the side of supportership where I'm cheering him on to do well. I hope he does well. Yeah, it's a bit like some other players in our team that cop it. Whereas for whatever reason, because he's been put in this captaincy position, like some people just want to cut him down to size, which is something that I cannot get around because you got to enjoy these things while they're there.
Hmm.
And if you're not, then fuck, what
He's
are you going to get joy out of?
when you see some of the things he does and his composure with the ball, and he's one of the more talented players I've seen play for this club at any time. And I've been watching Port Adelaide Footy Club.
Hmm.
I mean, if you count back to when I was 5-6 years old and starting to watch the Maggies on TV in the early '90s through to that inaugural team. And side note, and I'm not going to mention how or why, but I got to shake Fabian Francis's hand this weekend and thank him for like being a part of a childhood favorite team of mine, and that was fun. And so I've seen I've seen lots of talented players play for this club, and like Rosie's just there's a uniqueness to him, and I think that's part of what the detriment comes from, especially maybe not so much with our fans, but outside is like he looks like a to use a term that has been used, like he looks like a precious player, but he's actually not. He's quite hard and tough. It's just because of the way he moves. Like people just take it like
Mm.
there's an aesthetic thing that is good when you
They
know.
cast an aspersion
Yes,
just off of
exactly.
that element of his game.
Yeah, but he's actually quite. We've talked about it at times, whether it be pressure acts when he's in the midfield or whatever other numbers. He's quite tough. But just because he can
Hmm.
play quite silky as well, sometimes that's used as a detriment by people who see like 2 minutes of highlights every couple of weeks when they have cast an eye to what Port are doing. But he's a tough as nails player, and his skill, like that's why he's able to play it at every end of the field. And it was mentioned. I was really, really glad to see it mentioned. And we'll get to the forwards in a moment. We've just gone to a rosy tangent, which I'm all for. It was.
I mean, you could be saying the same thing about Zach Butters, to be honest, but because he's not captain, he seems to get the plaudits that he deserves more often.
And because he's got
whereas
that little
Connor's
bit of
like
chaos mongrel
Yeah.
as well. Like he does do
Yeah.
that highlight early in his career is smiling after he's fucking been like squashed by Jai Simpkin.
laid out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jai Simpkin, no. Fuck, who was it?
Was it Jack Zeeble?
Zeeble, yeah. It was, another J name, but yeah. It's just like, yeah. Butters has got that little chaos gremlin thing going on for him that, whereas Rosie has a lot of those skills, but like compartmentalizes and is a bit more calmer
They're displayed in a different way.
Yeah, which is why he's captain. Like, to be honest, beyond maybe the fact that he signed a contract is from South Australia and he's going to be here for 10 years, those things are a part of it too. Like, I'm sure, if Zach Butters was going to commit,
A lot of
there's a few things.
A lot of his captaincy is not the 2 hours that we watch on the weekend as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it is done at the club,
Mm.
which us nuffies have no clue.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Butters even self-admitted in the Jason Horne-Francis stuff from the Kangaroos game, as a bookend to the start of the podcast. I do that stuff sometimes too. Like, so you can't have, like, as much as Butters might be good captain material going forward, like you can't have some of that stuff that he's had in his game to be captain. Like, that's why Rosie perfectly blends all the abilities and both skill and mental capabilities to go through a game. Which is why he's great. And yeah, it was mentioned in commentary, I started saying before, like they talked about his intercept marking and his contested marking down back as well. I was really glad that he put up, because that's not noted enough that he's such good, strong overhead marker, which is why he's blended in so seamlessly to that back line when he's down there. So yeah, everything he did, whether it be in the midfield or the back line, was incredible on the weekend. Yeah, we've gone down a massive Rosie tangent, but as I said before, not mad about it at all. I can go down that tangent anytime.
Nah. Yeah, and I don't know if we kind of feel compelled to, just through the weight of criticism sometimes on the other end. And again, from the Port Adelaide fan base, is the stuff that I really care about, because, yeah, opposition fans can go get fucked. I don't care about their opinion by and large, but yeah, it kind of offends me a little bit how, just because he was the one that got made captain, and perhaps he copped a tag and didn't deal with it as well as perhaps Zach Butters has on occasion. Like, yeah, just people want to cut him down to size. I don't understand that for a second, because he is such a fantastic player. So yeah, there's some flowers.
Enjoy them, enjoy them while you've got them. Like,
absolutely,
when you're watching a player that plays as well as Rosie does, and that's the same thing with whether it be Butters or Wines or anyone. Like, when they're playing well, just enjoy them. Don't extrapolate it out to all of your other ideals or what disagreements you have with club, running, whatever it may be, because I think a lot of that comes into it too. Is just like, Rosie was made captain by an administration we don't like, so we're going to make it all about that. Like, it's just enjoy these guys. When it's those couple of hours in the field and they're playing a good game, maybe just start to enjoy it rather than make it all about something that it's not that's false equivalent. Those are false equivalencies as well. So it just doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, we should get to the forward line before you keep going down the tangent, because I could do a whole podcast about Connor Rosie anytime. But forward line, it's
not much to report. Let's get into segments.
It is an intriguing area, because it is, again, the area that is really being like, because and shout out to new Patreon member Simon Wilcox, who was at the game in Canberra, and he kind of mentioned,
G'day, Simon.
Yeah, shout out Simon. I'm sure he'll be listening. And he did mention he'd love to come on at some point. So we'll have to sort that out at some point as well. But he messaged a couple of messages on Patreon with his thoughts from the game, and just mentioned like the score. Sorry, I'm just trying to squat. Yeah, Port's attack is still really bad. We just can't take marks inside 50 under pressure. And a fellow Shear Squad member was noting how we only had like one inside 50 tackle by three-quarter time. I think we ended up with the inside 50 tackle numbers were one that was dominated by
Oh, that's a good
GWS.
shout because
Uh,
that goes against some perception.
uh,
Watching it from my couch.
yeah, well, 24-14 was the end of the game number, so I don't know what it was at three-quarter time. That would be pretty impressive if we took.
Mm.
I don't know if it would have been one inside tackle by 50 tackle by three-quarter time, because if that would have meant we'd take 13 in the last quarter, which is would be. I mean, we only average 11 and a half for a game the entire year, so I think
That's yeah.
we
That's
would
what I
have.
was meaning before. Like we've actually hit our average on some of these stats, but for a lot of them, we've gone above.
Yeah,
Where we'd like that above number to be the baseline, like I
yeah.
said. So yeah.
I would say the one thing I'll say about the tackles inside 50 number, the taking marks inside 50 is a thing to talk about, but the tackles inside 50 is kind of predicated on the fact that we don't have much in the way of good marking for like Georgiades, and they have a great defense, and we're an
Mm.
undermanned offense. So there was like those things, like if you can't bring the ball to ground and really get into inside 50 contests, we had time in forward half in the going forward in the second half, and maybe we did bridge that gap. I wish I'd actually, again, this is why I want to see quarter by quarter numbers even post game, because I want to see what the tackles inside 50 were quarter by quarter to get by
Mm.
the time we got to the last quarter. But we probably took the fact that they beat us by 10 tackles inside 50, but when you look at the way the game played by eye test, we probably had some of the more important tackles, whether it be Joe Richards one late in the game or otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean we shaded inside 50s. Marks inside 50 where we actually took more marks inside 50 for the game, which is incredible.
Yeah, and I'm glad you just brought that up because that's what's sitting front and center of mind. So yeah, and you're taking marks inside 50, you don't necessarily have to tackle. But as well as that, if Sam Taylor is taking marks inside our 50, it's hard to fucking tackle as well, for God's sake. Great, look,
We said it in the
great
squad
game by
show. He's
him.
he's an incredible player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great game by him. Great game by Jack Buckley. We knew they were going to be a handful, and in the end, they were.
Mm,
They're both obviously Sam Taylor's all Australian quality. I don't know if he's even got the nod yet because he's been injured for too many games over the last couple of years.
yeah.
Um, he would have made squads, but he hasn't got the final call. I think mostly due to injury absence. But everyone knows he's essentially an all Australian defender, and Jack Buckley mounts a good case in his own right. We knew it
Mm,
was going to be a handful. Um, but to George's, so Derm actually gave George credit in the end and said, "Look, Taylor's won that position, but at no stage did Georgiades give up.
yeah.
He kept fronting up. He kept working hard to get into position to market, to get to, and as is the case a lot of the time, like our entries leave a lot to be
Mm,
desired on too many occasions. Like, and entries that could finish off some fantastic pieces of play, whether it be
mm.
from the defensive end or from midfield. We just seriously let ourselves down.
It's
And even on occasions where we did kind of kick it in a bit lower with a bit more penetrate or just yeah, lower penetration. Yeah, just unfortunately Taylor was good enough to get a hand in.
They even made
Um,
mention of one moment where George did get the separation that generally would lead you to being able to take a mark out in front, and like
yeah.
Taylor's closing speed was just able to, and then because he's such a good, skillful defender, he's able to get his arm around George without impeding George in any way that would give away an infringement. Like he's just that good. And yeah, it's no coincidence that George's one goal was when he ended up with was it Lear on him at that point, like Lee Lear, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
was luckily yeah.
yeah. And even the
Somehow Taylor got caught on DBJ, I think they said.
yeah, hey, that's mismatches. That's what I mean. They tried to, we talked about the Crows game a few weeks ago. That's what the Crows exploited well at times was mismatches, and that's what you've got to do as a football. You've got to exploit mismatches. That happens in any sport. It's pretty,
Mm.
yeah,
Well, and George did get his opportunity. He
yes,
he
he did.
got He
We
did,
should,
but
make mention of that
squandered
because
it.
we texted about that on the night as well.
Yeah. Just it's the same way that he misses shots every time. He
Mm,
just falls away to the left. He doesn't stay balanced through the kick. And no surprise, it shaves left.
mm,
So much like our Ollie Lord criticism in previous weeks, it's like you might not get a lot of opportunities, but when you do, just make them count. And he's a much better forward than that. Um, his work rate alone suggests how good he is.
mm.
Just cap it off. Just
Yeah,
cap it off. Um,
and he's shown at plenty of times that he does have the technique and concentration to kick a very, very good set shot. It's just purely between the ears
mm,
for me. Like it's just like working
hmm
through the process. Like so, I don't have any qualms with him and his ability. It's just purely locking in the moment and not maybe. You there's got to
mm,
be a confidence about yourself, but maybe that was like too confident and too lackadaisical in those moments.
mm,
Yeah, or maybe he's thinking
Yeah,
about
he'll
like,
get there. It's,
yeah,
yeah, we're talking about a guy who's 23 still,
exactly.
so
Yeah, incredibly young
it's
and
only
playing.
up for
Yeah,
George.
and I think the battle with Taylor was really intriguing. It was clear, and it was one of those things that like it was just like when I was in the doldrums of expecting GWS to come back and win eventually, I was just like lamenting the fact that we are
Yeah.
so underdone in the forward line. Like with Ollie
Mm,
Lord not having gone ahead as much as we would have liked in recent weeks and being ultimately omitted. The fact that Todd Marshall's out for the year, even the fact we just haven't seen what Jack Lukosius is going to provide, either as a whether it be the link-up play or just as a
in our
marking forward.
system.
Yeah, so we
Mm,
are very, very underdone at the tall forward position. Finlayson had a game that was, I mean, we texted about his terrible turnover late in the game, but I think that was predicated by the fact that he had a couple shots and goal that just didn't go right, so he lost confidence. Like he just Finlayson in the showdown, like we almost won that showdown because Finlayson was playing in that game, whereas this was a game that he just had opportunities and he took some great marks. Like he was,
and that's the thing.
that's what's
This is the
frustrating.
thing. This is the small margin that separates him and Ollie Lord at the moment. Is that Finlayson is at least still keeping his defender busy.
Yeah.
He just keeps finding ways to fuck it up. And again, a lot like my comments in regards to Connor Rosie, like Finlayson's drawn a lot of criticism, and a lot of it has been warranted. He's fucked up both, in several different regards, whether it be comments made on the field, stuff he's done off the field, whatnot. Some of his body language, which look, I'm a bit of an apologist for, because when you've got such a big passion and heart, sometimes it's displayed in a negative way. I'm a bit of a culprit for it myself, but I know truly deep down that any of that negativity is rooted in a passion of care factor and a want to succeed and a
Mhm.
frustration that it's not quite paying off in certain regards. And
Did you see his face when he was on the bench after he'd been subbed off?
I don't care. I think
Oh no, he was
a
seething.
lot
He was
like
seething, angry, and it was.
no,
But
no, no. I saw it,
oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
and yeah, I because I've seen some of the comments that some people have made. I don't care. I If I haven't had the game that I wanted, I'd be fucking pissed off too.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
But my game,
I take it as a
mm,
positive that he was
yeah,
that way. I'm disappointed for him and frustrated that he couldn't have the game he wanted. But I think, I haven't actually seen much of the commentary around. As you know, I had a busy weekend with work, but
yeah,
after the day, I didn't look at too much. But I like just my personal view when I saw his face, I was like, that's a man that is pissed off, frustrated, didn't work out for him.
mm,
Just had everything go. Like he had a couple of shots of goal, they didn't work out, and then the one time he tried to do the team thing, probably because if he'd kicked one of those two shots he'd had earlier, I think he goes for that shot. But because he'd maybe just a
mm,
lack of confidence, and also centering the ball, like technically is when there's the that was a moment where the
Mm.
defense was a little bit at 6s and 7s for GWS. Like if you, so there's an
And he's on the
opportunity
wrong
there.
side for a left footer too.
Yeah, exactly. So it was the right thing. It's just like he completely and maybe that was partly because of a lack of confidence throughout the game. And
But
also,
then
it was also a game with a lot of turnovers. It was a bad. The teams are doing it both ways. So yeah,
yeah, you need to mitigate as much as you can,
Mm.
and yeah, turnovers and turnover scores are going to happen. That happens to Collingwood, you know. So there was even a moment, I can't remember which quarter it was. We were going to the left of screen. So would that be the first and third quarters? Where we had this passage of play, and then it kind of, he busted through this defender to get it kind of on the run on the center wing or half forward flank. And he came in and he went for a little bit of run. And then it was when he
had
went
a
to
bounce in
bounce
there.
it and it didn't come
Yes,
back up. Didn't
yes.
come back up. Like, so these are the things, like he is
If he collected
generating
that bounce, he almost
opportunities.
has a shot on goal. Like
He's away
yeah,
or he's lacing someone else out. So you're not absolved of all responsibility because you're trying hard or whatnot. But yeah, it's like we're short on tall forwards, and like I said, the small margin that's separating him from an Ollie Lord, and I mean Lord, yeah, didn't hurt himself with his performance in the Magpies. It must be said too. He
yeah,
did
good
what he
win
should
by
be
them, by the
doing.
way. Yeah,
Um, kicked 3 goals for those who haven't caught the Magpies score or the breakdown of the score. But yeah, Finlayson is generating opportunities. He didn't cap off any of them on the weekend, and yeah, different people have different expectations on how sports people should act or conduct themselves. I'm a very passionate person, and like I said, sometimes that can be portrayed as in a negative light. It's not how others sometimes portray their emotions, and so in that, I can kind of empathize or see the layers beneath what's going on in Finlayson's psyche a little bit, and these things aren't outs. Like you need, but
yeah. We still, if you're
there's
being selected as part of the 22,
everyone is different.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, um, yeah. I wish he'd had it. Wish he'd had a better game. But he still. I can understand, like when you look at the end of the game and what he was able to, like beyond the goal kicking and some of those, he just had one of those games where it just didn't quite go for him. Like that, even that bounce
Mm,
attempt.
mm.
The commentators were like, "Yeah, cold night," and it's just like, yeah, but it's just like, yeah, 99 times out of 100 when he goes for that bounce, it's coming back to him. He just had that one moment, and then a couple of goal kicking attempts just didn't work right, and then yeah, that centering ball attempt kind of just capped off what was just a forgettable night. But he was involved in yeah, it's the intent, it's the in between stuff that he's still like, yeah, he was getting involved in it, and it just didn't work out right, and that probably yeah
No.
yeah it didn't help the
Well, and he might. I'm not sure where he sits on his contractual status or whatnot. He may not get another contract.
yeah.
Look, and that may be his lot in life, but yeah. It's like
I
once
was a bit frustrated when there's a few people just like the reaction tweeting about like they shouldn't be on the list next year. It's just like, okay, we say that after the showdown, then like don't have like it's the easiest thing you can do is have that opinion
yeah.
after a mistake.
Yeah,
Like
punch on someone when they're down.
yeah, I just don't like that
Mm.
stuff. That's why I try not to do that. I'm not perfect. I'm sure I've done it at some point in my life, but yeah, it's just like it's poor form to just be like when someone makes like has a bad game, just be like, yeah, and because they're at the age profile and kind of their game, just like yeah, shouldn't be on the list next year. It's just like okay, cool. There's a bunch of players at the moment that aren't showing the exact locks of the list, but this isn't the time for those decisions. It's just yeah, it is what it is. He had a bad game, but he almost won us a showdown a few weeks ago, and I'll stand by that. I think we aren't even as close in that
Yeah.
showdown. There's a lot of things we did right in that showdown. A lot of players played well, but Jeremy Finlayson was a key part of that. Could almost should have maybe won it for us with a couple more shots at goal, but yeah, he had a bad game this one. That's kind of Jeremy Finlayson at this point in his career. He has some great games, and then he has some down ones, and that's partly because he's in and out of the side. He's not a lock for the side, so that's what
Mm.
happens to players like that.
Mm.
They just don't have a comfortable run.
part of it is his age profile too. Like at his age, he probably should be performing at a more consistent level. The
Yeah.
the point you make about kind of being in and out of the side, I think is a valid one.
Mhm.
That like inconsistency, like there's room for being critical of people, but you still have to acknowledge what they bring to the overall setup.
Yeah.
And as well as that is like, what other choice do we have at the moment? Really?
That's the thing. I'm
Um,
his selection over Lord makes sense and still does even at the end of that game. Like, because Lord,
mm,
for all he did good in the Sandful, he still hasn't shown that at the AFL level yet. So Lord needs to go down, have those couple of weeks where he kicks 3 or 4 goals at the Sandful level, shows that he's comfortably above that level, and then come up with that confidence and have another crack at the AFL level. But we've seen diminishing returns from him, and he's so. And then because of the
mhm.
injury quandary we have, you've got some people out there going, "Oh, bring Jack Whitlock in now. You might as well." It's just like, no, no. Like, let him develop as well. Like, don't do that. Eddie Corns made the point. Like, you bring too many
Mm,
guys in too soon. It's not like always a positive thing.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, there's
and I'm
this.
100% like this is bottom of the barrel. Like, yeah, really been cricket stuff, but I've been in teams where the ethos has been like just fill it with kids, and
Mm,
it's I couldn't disagree with that philosophy anymore. I couldn't disagree with it anymore.
mm,
And I'm on Eddie's side in that argument. Like you need a balance.
yeah.
You need a balance of age and experience and skill level. Because yeah, you fill a team with kids and you're rudderless almost.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And I think we had a nice little balance on the weekend. Anything else in the forward line? Oh, sorry, Willie. Could have had 4 goals almost.
Hmm.
Like incredible. Like
Well,
yeah.
that's it. And we were talking about how like fuck George is getting well held. This is like on the night
Mm,
we were talking like George is getting well held. Like yeah, I don't even think we brought up Finlayson, but we kind of knew like yeah, we're not getting any returns for our two forward. So who's going to offer something? Like we need more avenues to goal
mm,
if we're gonna get up. And again, like we're chatting throughout the game, it's like it's a big if
yeah.
kind of thing. Like we're still expecting to fucking squander it or
Mm,
whatnot, even though we were behind at halftime. But yeah, the fact of the matter is that like cool, like you and I acknowledge like Taylor was tailoring, I think you said, but so
yeah.
George is being well kept. He needs to keep him honest, but we need more avenues to go.
Mm.
So yeah, Willie kicking the two, bit of magic, like you said, could have had one or two more as well. And
Well, there was the
yeah,
one that
just we,
was
we had some cameos which ultimately helped.
yeah. I mean, really put 4 through the sticks. It's just one was and legitimately reviewed, and there was a fingertip to it, so that's fine. And then the other one was called back for a free kick. But he was there and thereabouts, and as you said,
Mm.
a constant threat and a point of danger, which was constantly kind of there to be worried about by their defense. And then yeah, obviously the likes of and in these kind of scrappy games, you need your other guys, the other guys, to stand up.
Other guys, yeah, I'd still like more from SPP though, if I'm being honest.
It was literally about, geez, you're good. Like our brains, man. Literally about to bring him up as my watch for the week. This was a game.
Yeah, right.
This was a game we needed SPP to kind of stand up, particularly with the fact that with Georgiades being held, because SPP kind of almost in this kind of game becomes like your third tool. Not that he's a tool, but he's
Yes.
strong at his best. He's a strong mark overhead. And
Yep.
I
Powerful.
almost feel like I like jinxed him, and because I was talked about it, I think in the squad show on the Patreon show, like just like his marking's been better the last few weeks, and then he fucking was just like in and out of the hands all
Yeah.
game, and like again we talked about the cold weather before. Like I think it was a part of that. I just think SPP I just don't think he was very happy with the weather, and he was just had a bad just like I wanted like this is the kind of game that you want SPP to kind of be that point of difference
Hmm.
when the tool was being held, and he just didn't really have much of an impact. Had some good
Yeah, I mean,
he
those
had he
those
had
drop
some good
marks
yeah he was
were the
good
difference
off the ball. He was
in
okay,
his
but like
game.
yeah, but we needed that stuff. So that's why he's my like. Obviously, again, I'm very very comfortable with SPP in the side, but I think this was a disappointing game from like in my point of view from what he could have offered. As far as just like those drop marks ring quite loud in my mind as far as just crucial points in the game where a mark from SPP, whether it be up the field because he was coming up the field, like trying to.
That's right.
Or inside 50, like he missed them. I think it was a missed opportunity
Yeah,
to have a bit better game. And like we just
I
needed.
agree.
Yeah, there's not really any severe watches out of a game like this because everyone kind of played a scrappy role to get the result. But he's probably the one I was most disappointed in the night as I was watching the game, just quite frustrated. Finlayson is probably the obvious choice if we're going to do a watch list proper, but like we know that's like Finlayson's in and out of the side kind of player, so like I'm not going to do that to him. Whereas SBP is a core part leadership group guy. I wanted more from him on the night.
Yeah, there was a marking opportunity inside 50 in the pocket, close to the boundary, that kind of summed it up. And I think it was a great passage of play to get it there,
Yeah,
from what I remember. And Buckley came across the spoiler. I believe it ended up in a throw in. But in that moment, I'm just thinking SPP, who's on, he's just taking that, even though Buckley is, like we said before, a formidable defender in his own right and probably still gets to the contest. But SPP that's on just is stronger in the arms, stickier in the hands, and just takes it and has a shot on goal when, yeah, it was just kind of in the moment, seemed like a half-hearted effort to mark the ball,
yeah.
and maybe just kind of expected it to happen.
Mm.
Whereas, yeah, when SPP's on, he's leaving it beyond doubt in those types of moments.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about where I'm at. It felt like he was just slightly off, and like I said, I can't even put it down to anything more than like just didn't enjoy that those temperatures. I don't know
Yeah,
what else it could be. Like
yeah,
he just, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And it
didn't.
just mostly comes down to his marking, because he is a forward.
Mm,
Yeah, I'm just trying to find him here. Yeah, nine possessions, so forwards game, but you take those marks,
yeah,
put some more hurt on the scoreboard,
yeah.
or
He was
put some
one
more
of our
fear into the
one of our
opposition.
best pressure act players. Like he was doing the off the ball stuff, but just you want that
Mm.
a little bit more out of him. But around that, like
Mm.
and especially in a game where Willie Rioli's, you know, put four through the sticks, scored two officially on the scorebook. But like, Willie Rioli's finding the space and opportunity. So you think, Powell-Pepper with his marking ability and so much close
Yeah,
attention being paid to both, Georgiades and Finlayson or wherever it may be, it'd be the kind of game that Powell-Pepper has at times proven to be able to really, really exploit. The showdown was a great example of a game where he found those opportunities. So, yeah, I mean, one more thing to talk about before we get into the segments. What did SPP say?
Yeah, PP looks like a mad cuddler. He can't.
what did David King say?
Yeah, sorry. What did David King say about SPP is what I meant. But because
He's a mad cunt.
David King's tried to walk it back, but like, whoever says someone's a mad cuddler? I mean, I could describe that about Andrea at times, so it'd be in entirely different context. What was David King trying to say? He's tried to walk it back with Kane on Fireball, but
Yeah.
when you brought it to my attention and I've listened to it so many times and I've added to the sting board, I'm like, I hear cunt every time. Like just a softer,
Yeah, it was just, yeah.
end of it, obviously, but no one says mad
Mad cunt.
cuddler
Yeah.
twice as well. Because he says it twice.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that sting just shows it once, but he says it twice, and both times it sounds more like cunt than cuddler. So I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, he's softening the cuddler to, yeah, just put something out there into the world. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure it all made sense in his mind because the commentary team or the Fox panel were just kind of trying to pad while Willie was out there on the field
Yeah.
taking selfies and shit. Um, but yeah, it was something that he'd got in his mind and just kept saying it. And then yeah. to his detriment because he cut himself off someone spoke over the top of him right at the wrong moment.
Yeah. It was a really weird passage of, I mean, the entire passage of like Willie being out there and like, it was very good TV because it was just like very, like, they had to pad and the team had to like them having the camera on like right when Rosie just goes, all right, fuck it, I'm walking out, I'm going to see what's going on. They're like, oh, the captain's going
not
out.
the captain.
Even Murray's started walking out at one point. Yeah, it was a really fun sequence of TV. It's funny because you and I have talked about this, and I'm glad to see it highlighted as well. Willie Rioli's relationship with fans, and I think Rioli posted about it a couple of days after, and kind of said, like, I was always taught to, show the appreciation to the people that like why you do this and all that stuff, and had a more serious take as to why, like, but you and I have talked about it in previous weeks. Like the video I've got, I need to get it posted actually. So keep an eye on it for that in the next couple of days. I might try to work out and edit for that. But the video I have of after the Kangaroos game, so after our last win, before this game, like Willie running the full length of the field to go meet the fans at the northern end, like the hill end, the scoreboard end as it is, where the rest of the team were already waiting to head down the race, but he slowly jogged up looking pretty sore to go see the fans and then jogged back, and the team waited for him to come back. And yeah, it's about 2 minutes of video on my phone of just Willie jogging up, jogging back. No other player really went close to greeting fans at that end of the field, but he did that. And so it's something I've noticed over, like, and you and I have talked about over a lot over recent weeks, in particular in the wake of the whole threats on field thing and the negative things that were being said about Willie, is just how much of a good person he is. Like, yes, he has there's detriments of character. I have detriments of character. I can be a fucking dickhead at times. But like the core part of who he is someone that's really appreciative of people and fans, and that I was really glad to see that. Like, obviously comical in the night, the Fox panel and fucking David King calling SPP a mad cunt. Like, all that's funny, but the core of it that I actually enjoyed was the stuff that the side of Willie, particularly after, it's not like it's orchestrated, but particularly after what's happened in recent weeks with Willie, like to have that be shone out to a national audience is really, really cool to see. The people that may have a negative view of Willie, it probably hasn't changed it because those people are fucking a few sheep short in the
troglodytes.
But yeah, yes, exactly. But for those that don't know, like I remember talking to my parents about it on the weekend, they were like, "Oh, that was really cool to see." Like that stuff with Willie was funny. I was like, "Yeah, I talked to them about the Kangaroos thing, and they're like, oh, okay." Like they're Crows fans, so they had no idea. So I kind of talked to them about my view, like things I've noticed about Willie over the years, and they were like, oh yeah, because all they know as Crows fans that are learning the names of the players. And my mum was just like, "Oh, I'm learning the names of the players again." I'm like, "You fucking bandwagoner." So like they don't have, like, they follow the Crows but don't follow them too heavily. So they're following the Porters even less. I like explained to them some of the stuff I've noticed of Willie over the years, and they were like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, because all they've seen is more of the negative stuff. So it's good to see some positive Willie stuff out in the atmosphere, because he deserves that. Because I think, regardless of all the stuff that, we can't like deny the stuff that happened a few weeks ago, but also there is a lot of context to it, and like the stuff that he does that doesn't get seen, that got seen on the weekend, is really, really important as far as the story of Willie Rioli goes.
Yeah, well said. We know what it's about as fans. Yeah. What's in other people's minds is up to them.
Yeah. But David King definitely did drop a "see you next Tuesday" on live TV. So that's also the big point there. Anything else you're happy to get into? Segment.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Gray at his best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks Crawley.
Robbie! Let him entertain you!
It was a weekend where it was very scrappy. There was a few let him entertain you moments on the weekend for sure. I get to go first this week, and I'm really, really excited because this one got me out of my seat, and it's Vicentini's bump on Leakalea in the third quarter, about 7 minutes into the quarter.
Keeps on coming through the middle. Lear crash went Vicentini. Put a Lear to the turf again, and Port win the ball back.
Yeah, what a game Buckley's playing, but Lecolier's hurt again. That's the risk reward, the way the Giants want to play their handball game through the corridor. Port have been pretty good onto it all night, and the young fella, Derm, the ruckman, he's throwing his weight around for
He's handed it out,
that was a terrific fair bump again. We saw an earlier bump.
He fucking lays there. And it's a classic bump. It's not like, you know, a lot of the bumps that get the scrutiny these days, the fast pace, like running through the field, but it was really just a big man kind of standing up and laying a bump into another big man, and he just lays him out. So Dante Vicentini's bump on Leclerc, and I loved it because obviously Vicentini being a young player, I was just like, fuck yeah, let's go. And it got me a visceral reaction on my couch on the night. I like shot up in my seat. It was like, fuck yes. Just that footy visceral stuff is what Vicentini got out of me on the weekend. So yeah, my Wilson Gray nomination is absolutely Vicentini's bump on Leclerc. I fucking loved it. And I gather from your reaction that was in your shortlist as well.
Oh, it sure was, because we discussed off mic that surprisingly, I don't know. There was a lot of almost moments in this regard, and so I'm like, I'll just finish that off and then I can put that on the shortlist. But alas, it didn't happen. So and then found myself going to like record down basic footy actions, and I'm like, no, this is way too basic. But in saying that though, not a lot to choose from in my opinion. Shout out to Viz's Torp assist to Georgiadis out of a stoppage though. That was pretty entertaining. But on a similar aggressive note, Butters executed a pretty sexy rundown tackle, which had a bit of spinning action. That was about halfway through the first quarter, maybe a bit of a signal of intent from the vice captain.
Again, Jones. Oh, what a running tackle from Butters. He is quite a unique player, isn't he, with his desperation. So low to the ground. No escape there.
Just typical Butter stuff, what we spoke about before. Just a predator in the wild.
Predator in the wild, I love that. He does hunt like a lion. And like when he locks in, you know, you hear those stories of like, and not that you hear these stories that much, but when you read stories about like lions and stuff, like how they lock in, and like once you're in, you're fucked, and that's like a Butters tackle. I feel like so. I
didn't actually record down who he ran down, but again, it was a bit of a signal of intent. Good signs. Span him around as well, legally, of course. Just food for the eyes.
Butters is sneaky, very, 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 very good exponent of the modern tackle, I believe. Sometimes gets himself into trouble just purely through his aggression and a little bit of his snark that comes through his aggression. But like when he's actually just executing tackle, he's really, really, really good. And he's just so strong upper body that like he does it so well. My honorable mention would be, it led to the goal, but Butters. Richards on that tackle to set himself up for the sealer was a really, really good moment as well. And he's been nominated for those moments so much this year. like Richards as a pressure forward, and actually one that like finishes off as well as everything he does is really, really good as well. So it was a scrappy game, so not like the highest of highs of Wilson Grays, but there's also always a few, especially in a game like this when you ultimately win. So I think we're both really, really excited to get to the goal of the week. So let's get into that.
Monfries has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint, Stevie Modler, what a time! Oh! He is floating on air now!
You get to go first this week, which is a really fucking good week for the week. 9 to choose from, but they're all fucking pretty good.
I'm a little overwhelmed, if I'm honest. Yeah. Do I go romance, romanticize the goal, situational, food for the eyes, but I I think, yeah, the best goal, if not up there, is Rosie's toe poked it, so it's a bit of a team goal. Rosie's toe poked it in open play, and then Willie snatched it after GWS collected it, went to hand pass, snatched it, bang, dob. Bit of a deliberate grubber through the goals in the
Those
second
ones
quarter.
that Jason Dunn still loves.
Now Richards on the fly, helped by the toe poke of Rosie to try and maximise the potential danger. Snatched away by Rioli, and he sent it home in the quickest possible manner.
Washed off his pace, and he just watches where's that handball going.
It's good work rate from Connor Rosie. He worked hard to provide the outnumber. Ball got out the back of that kick to a contest. They had the 2v1. They kept the surge going.
But that was like, I actually don't know why players don't do it more often. It's that kind of like you're kicking the opposite point of the ball for it to go forward.
Yeah, because
on the
like
ground
when you
straight.
understand how a ball works. And again, to speak to things I've seen from Willie, like I've watched Willie play keepy up with an AFL football, like in pre-game, and he would do it like 30 times in a row. And like playing keepy up with a round ball seems difficult. Playing keepy up with a fucking AFL football seems like next to impossible. So this is a guy that understands the nuances and how the AFL, the Sharon works. And so like when he's doing something like that, I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking ceding whatever like base judgment I have about what you should do to you because you have a symbiotic relationship with a Sharon. Like that's Willie. Like, yeah, you fucking if that's what seems the best thing to do. And like as you said, the physics of it makes sense. Like if you kick the ball that way, like, and you're aiming to that post, and it's gonna like shave. It's just gonna
tumble straight.
Yeah, tumble straight, and yeah, and it was never in doubt. Yeah, it was an incredible goal. The Rosie toe poke was incredible too, and then Willie's just the snatch out of the air from I think it was Lockie Ash. Tries to handball it or do something with it, trying to clear it. And,
it was so quick. Like,
yeah.
boop, boop.
But Willie just
grab, kick, goal.
But Willie just like recognizing he's going with the handball and just plucking his arms up into the air and grabbing it and fucking putting it on the boot. Like, incredible goal. That was right in my short list as well. But I'm going to go with the romanticism, I think. There's a lot of honorable mention to Joe Richards' goal from the boundary. Like that should be probably. That should be my pick, I think. But I'm going to go with I'm going to try and tug at the heartstrings and then a little bit of romanticism with mine. But I think it's actually it's a relatively simple finish. But Christian Moraes, I think.
Yeah.
Targeting, we didn't, not so much with that kick though.
This kick.
To Drew. And then short to Moraes. Maybe he can play a role. A massive role. How's that for impact? On and in.
Create some space. He read the turnover straight away. Just caught him in the bottom of screen. As soon as Drew took that mark, he was off. Shot out of a cannon. He sensed the opportunity. He wasn't going to have too long to think about it. That's a big moment in this game. Come off the back of a mistake. We just mentioned a few minutes ago the fatigue in these players now, the turnovers.
I think to kick your first goal in this moment, and he's teased it. I tweeted it on the night. He's had the.
I was going to say, you mentioned the teasing, and he has. Oh my
he's had
god,
a few opportunities, but yeah, for him to take this moment, and it's all the setup stuff that goes into it for me. It obviously comes from a turnover, like the GWS are trying to clear their back line. They kick into try to go through the corridor. Willem Drew with a great intercept mark takes the mark, but then like off screen, Moraes has already got, noticed that Drew's taken that intercept mark and has gone forward and broken into space for Willem Drew to obviously pick him out relatively easily. But then Moraes takes the mark 45 meters out and could stop and prop and take the shot. But we've talked about this ever since his debut. His quickness of mind is why we're so excited for him as a player. He's very intelligent as an AFL player already. And he quickly recognized that no
basketball background.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think people have talked about that as well as like basketball is such a more condensed sport with spacing and stuff, but it's very much about spacing and opportunity and where you get and like so you have to have a quickness of mind that comes from basketball. And when Christian Murray's basketball highlights are really fun to watch. By the way, I've gone down the YouTube rabbit hole a little bit there at times.
Wow.
Yeah. He's got some good highlights.
Nice.
His quickness of mind to recognize, there's no one going to immediately man the mark. There's space in front of me. There's no one in the goal square. I can just race forward a few more meters, gain some grass, and just put a little. It wasn't he didn't pump through the football. He just like puts enough on it to make sure it's going through the goal. Just a perfectly directed kick, kind of like he's stab passing to a teammate in the forward line, but except he's looking at the center of the goals as the teammate. It's just for that to be your first goal, I think, and definitely lip readers. He definitely drops an F-bomb in his celebration with one of the players. I can't remember who was it. There's a fuck yeah.
Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. Or something like that. Someone and
the celebratory duck stepping and excitement and elation as well. Just awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was very, very glad to use that as the post-match graphic. Which, by the way, I had set up a bad post-match graphic for most of the game. Halfway through the third quarter, I was like, fuck, we're going to fucking... I was already
expecting the loss to come.
I'd found a photo from the game, and I was just like, this is going to be the graphic. And I'd already edited it, done the black and white. I was already teeing up to fucking do Last Breath again. And then and I was just slowly changing the score as I do. And then as the game, as the quarter went on, I was like, oh my God. And then I think once Ollie Wines kicks the goal, I was like, fuck, I got to find a new photo. And then the Murray's ones were fresh up on the internet. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. And then GW said the little push and I was like, oh my God, have I jinxed it too soon? But then Joe Richards, Joe Ice Cool.
I got to talk about that goal for a second as well. Just taking your full 30 deep in the pocket,
looking over the shoulder a couple of times,
stretching
suburban ground as well. So you've got to have the knowledge of where the fucking clocks are that you've got to look for because there's no fucking big screens up in front of you to see. You've got to look over the shoulder. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, he's looking over his shoulder. He's stretching. He's making sure his Guernsey's not creased or whatever. Just taking the time. All the while, I'm just expecting him to kind of jut out and snap it. But no, he goes back, he kicks the drop punt, and Hutto calls it perfectly and just seals the deal. Just ice cold, fucking man of the moment, Joe Richards just puts it straight through the middle.
Yeah.
And says, how about that? Loved it. Loved that goal. And that's not even a nomination for tonight, but I loved it.
He's just giving a very, very good honourable mention to Joe Richards because it was an incredible goal. It was, I haven't even told you this yet. Right as you sent me the message, the text saying, I think you said ice cold or something from Joe or something along those lines was right when I was pressing send on the tweet, Joe Richards with ice in his veins. It was just very, same brain stuff. I was just it's just ice cold. How we fucking just, how we looked at the clock, worked out what time was on, and then fucking goes back and sinks that. And that's partly our point with the likes of Mitch Georgiades and stuff is Joe Richards can go through the process and sink the perfect set. And Richards isn't getting the number of shots that Mitch Georgiades will have in his career, but with his few shots that Joe Richards had this year, he's been relatively accurate. So, long may it continue. And he could have been a Wilson Gray and a Goal of the Week nominee, and he hasn't got it either. But it just goes to show. He's kind of slowly, just quietly becoming a really, really important part of our forward line going forward, and I'm really, really glad. Out of all the tumult of last year that we ended up with Joe Richards in our side. He's a great finisher and a great player as well. He's, like I said, he's featured in Wilson Gray a lot this year already. So long may it continue. But a great couple of goals. It's hard to, I definitely tugged at the heartstrings because I think that Murray's one was an incredible, it's a relatively simple finish. It's portray like there's for that to be your first goal, and we're at 1 point up at that point. Like there's so much pressure in that moment, and he showed a maturity. And then your Willie nomination is just such that snatch out of the air from the handball, like, and then the goal, just fucking just good shit. It's so many good goals from a game that was very like lacking in a lot of goals. So I love it. All right, Player of the Year nominations, Player of the Year votes, and I'm looking forward to getting into these. Lots of stats.
Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting.
It's been a few weeks since I heard that. No, it didn't annoy me as much, which is surprising.
Yeah.
The vote. So I get to go first this week. A few honorable mentions. I struggled with my one vote spot. It was really, really tough. The upper echelon of the votes was easy for me, but the one spot was difficult. So I'm going to give an honorable mention to Willem Drew. I don't know if obviously I don't know what Jamie did first, so I won't go into too much stats, but I just think Willem Drew had a decent game. So I'm going to get an honorable mention there. Saying that, my one vote, I threw Ollie Wines in there. I think just his leadership on field is really, really important in these games. He's up there with, he had 23 disposals, 11 of them contested, 8 marks, a really, really big goal coming from that, as we talked about earlier, that ruck contest that he kind of faked out the opponent that was there. His presence was just felt on field, and I think that's really, really important. Like to the point about just blooding youngsters, as opposed to like you need that veteran presence on the field to win these kind of games. I think Ollie Wine's presence was really, really well felt on the night. He's continuing to play good football. Like I said, it wasn't a upper 20s to 30s disposal game, but he got into the 20s. A lot of them contested. Some big marks on the night too. Like I think he was almost helped tied. I don't think anyone had more than 8 marks on the night. So yeah, it was he and Bergman.
Except for Bergman.
Yeah, he and Bergman with 8 marks. So like a really big game as far as just what he could do around the field. And I just think his leadership, even though he's not in the leadership group, is really, really important at this time. Over the last 18 months, I think his leadership on field as just a beacon of what you can be is really, really important for Ollie Wine's game and to the rest of the team. So, yeah, shout out to Ollie Wines. My 2 votes, Asava Radaglia. We kind of teased it earlier. Almost thought about putting him up higher, but still, 18 possessions, 11 of them contested, 7 marks, 2 of those contested, 12 intercept possessions. I think a really important part of it is actually his 7 ground ball gets is up there for the side. He's right up there with like the other defender on the list of top, like big defenders more so. Sam Taylor. So Sam Taylor had 7 ground balls. Asava had 7 ground balls, and you wouldn't think ground balls is a strength of Asava's game, and maybe they weren't great, but he did have them, and I think that's a sneaky part of his game. That's while he's still not great.
I think it's been noted as a weakness. To be fair,
yes, exactly. That's why
a lot of the commentary has been like, "Oh, if the ball gets on the ground."
I think it was even noted at times during the game, like when he fumbled a couple, it was just like, but he still was. Again, like we said earlier, he's getting involved and like he's making himself accountable. Whether or not he can actually execute it, he's making himself accountable. But I think through the process of just attacking the ball, he's actually starting to find some more confidence in his abilities to actually execute what he's trying to do. So I think, yeah.
He had an interview, he had a press conference today, and he said that almost verbatim. He said, I'm a confidence player, and I kind of need that to perform, and yeah, I'm confident at the moment. I'm having a good run at it. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing now, but yeah, he kind of acknowledged it.
That's interesting. I hadn't seen that at all, but yeah,
obvious.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah, it was one of those written, like cameras off press conferences.
Right. Yeah.
Written format on the Port website.
Yeah. But still, it's good to see him getting the flowers because he absolutely deserves them. And I think he had, like I said, he probably hasn't featured in too many votes, but I think he had one of his best games for the club. And he's had a few of those this year already and should be appreciated more. My 3 votes, Connor Rosie. 28 possessions. I think he could have been up there more, depending on what others did. But he did exactly what we wanted to do. He could have had a couple more goals, but 28 possessions, 7 marks, 6 tackles, 5 inside 50s, 685 meters gained. He had the 4 rebound 50s, so it's really just shows his talent spread across the field that he's having the inside 50s and the rebound 50s. 4 score involvements, 4 intercept possessions, 17 pressure acts, which was up there for us as well. Using the ball with those 28 disposals at 71% efficiency as well. So, yeah, I think Rosie, just a really, really great captain's game once again. Yeah, obviously not best on field, but he was right up there for me. Miles Bergman gets the 4 votes. I think he got the MVP from the Port fan vote on the PFC. I think I saw, but he gets my 4 votes. 23 disposals, 11 contested, 8 marks, 2 of them contested. Oh, like I said, he and Asava were he and Ollie were up there, tied for the most marks in the game. He had the 8 rebound 50s, the 4 tackles, 7 intercepts, 548 meters gained, using it at 73.9% efficiency, and the 8 ground ball gets, which was second best on field for us, behind who's about to be my 5 vote best on field. But Justin Bergman, I think one of his better games for the club as well. Quietly, I just think he was popping up at the right times. Like some of the crucial intercept marks he took, even if they were uncontested, they were like him reading the ball, the flight of the ball first in the back line, and then getting it moving out of the back line. So I'll leave nothing more before you get to your votes, because I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit there as well. But yeah, obviously my 5 votes and best on field goes to Zach Butters. I think one of the best Butters games he's had, actually. He's had plenty of good games for us at this point. He's had the 40 disposal numbers at times as well, but I think just the spread of numbers, and I'm just going to read them out here. You got 32 disposals, 21 contested, which was a career best. You have 7 tackles, 7 inside 50s, I think 12 clearances, which I think was also career best. It's 16 ground ball gets. 16 ground ball gets, which was by far best on field. Tom Green was the next best with 10. 6 intercept possessions, 453 meters gained, 75% disposal efficiency in those 32 disposals, which is obviously best on field for both teams as well. So his numbers across the board were just incredible when you just think about both sides of the ball. There was no doubt that he could be best on field. I was actually kind of surprised that the fan vote or the MVP that the Port gave was to Bergman, because I just think those Butters numbers, as good as Bergman was, those Butters numbers are undeniable. Like, yes, he doesn't kick the goals. He doesn't, maybe it's a little bit more working class, but those numbers are still undeniable to me. And you like eye test watching the game, you noticed it as well. You noticed his impact and what he was doing. And he by far is best of field for me.
Yeah, great shout. Good list. Some names that were feature on my list as well. Honorable mention for me goes to Kane Farrell. Coming back in, like I said, in relation to our defense and our whole team makeup, it's no surprise we play better when our better players are in the side. And
funny how that
being one
works,
of them,
isn't it?
he came back. Yeah, pretty interesting. He came back in. He got caught out once, but he had the 3 shots on goal too. I thought it was a much more comfortable team balance with him in.
We didn't even give him the honorable mention for the goal of the week. I fucking did a Pornhub edit for his goal, and didn't he?
You did, yeah, exactly. And
that guy, like the way that ball moved was incredible. Like that fucking, I've watched it so many times since.
Bit of reverse swing.
Yeah. Anyway, continue. I just wanted to make a point of that because
honorable mentions all around for Kane Farrell.
Yeah.
Rosie's had 4 shots on goal, 1 goal 3, and Farrell's had 3 shots on goal with the 1 goal 2. So, come on, boys, lift your game. Anyway, into my votes, I did put Drew at the number 1. So obviously, Wines and Drew, fantastic games in their own right. It was just it harkened back to a true Willem Drew game. A lot of what we gave plaudits for last year. He just seemed to be everywhere. it seemed. And, you know, when Willem's getting his 10 tackles, for me, it's hard to leave him out of votes. 18 pressure acts.
Yeah.
He had 18 disposals, half of which were contested, 6 ground ball gets, 6 clearances, and 3 of those were from the centre as well. So,
which I think is
yeah.
second best for the side, with Dante Vicentini. I think. Yeah. That's why it was so tough for me with Willem, because there's just something about when I
Oh, you're splitting hairs, down that end, because
it was purely eye test that got Ollie in there for me.
yeah. In another life, Ollie Wines would have found himself my one vote there. Like, because after the top few, it was a fairly even contribution from that next rung down. Like,
to your point, like, because we
could put a few
lamented
players.
Willem Drew being missing a little bit in earlier weeks, and this was a game where he was just ever present.
He was, definitely noticed it.
Even in the post-match content, when fucking Christian Moraes is asking him how much sunscreen he put on for the
day. He would love that. Anyway, my 2 votes. Yeah, absolutely. My 2 votes goes to Asava as well. For all the reasons that you said, just a great Asava game, a bit of a step up, and that's all we're asking. Anyone, just keep taking steps up, have less steps down, and he definitely took a step up, in my opinion. I've put Bergman at the 3, and it's a funny story because I almost gave Rosie the nepotism best on ground. It was just a vibe in the immediate aftermath. It was probably come down to score involvements, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because Butters ended up with the 2, Bergman had 3, and Rosie had 4. So again, splitting hairs. But as it lands, I've got Bergman 3, Rosie 4, and Butters at 5 votes. Yeah. That's not to discredit Bergman's game at all. Like you said, he was the fan MVP. Fantastic defensive work, but like David King said in the aftermath about Ken Hinkley, he'd just love having players like Rosie and Butters on his list because they just give 100% every week. And I'm happy that they're in our side, and I'm happy that Bergman's he's taken many steps up in recent weeks too, so deserves to be in the top 3 for sure.
Yeah. The 4 and 3 votes were difficult for me. I always had Butters there. I just think those numbers were undeniable, and it's not just numbers. It was just like watching on the night. It's just like the way his application to the contest was just like the Butters. Like there was something about Butters coming out of the bye that you could just tell that he's locked in, and whatever the future stuff is, just like Butters is locked in to this moment as a Port Adelaide player. Like, there's no qualms about who he is at this moment in time. And just, this game was just one of those ones that was just like, it's just everything I want out of a player. Rosie, incredible. Bergman, incredible. It was very, very, it's one of those games that you could have easily, every one of them has a case for best on field. It's just about, again, splitting the numbers, I guess. And I love that you got Drew. That was the one thing I can't remember if it was off air or on air, but we were talking about the votes, and you're like, we're probably going to be pretty similar. I was just like, I can imagine, like, if I've gone Wines, I was just like, in my head, I was just like, I reckon you've gone Drew, because that was the one we've almost Yahtzeed, and it was just that one, and and I felt bad leaving Drew out. It's just there again. There was an element of just my appreciation for Wines as a leader on the night, but Drew's certainly no slouch either, and he had one of his quietly better games, I think, Drew. Just often,
the context of this season.
Yeah, often with Drew, it's just like has those quiet games, but there's always those ones above him that are more up in stars. But love those picks, and a great game for us. Just guys that love watching these great players run around in Port Guernseys and apply themselves incredibly well, because it was a tough, scrappy game, and one that was, I think, greatly enjoyable for the purist. I think, and not a facetious way at all. Like, genuinely watching the replay again, I really, really enjoyed it. Like, just to finish off before we get to touching on the this week's game and finishing off. Like, did you like the replay was enjoyable? Like that's what I found. I just enjoyed watching this.
It was
replay.
a win.
Yeah, but like as
Yeah,
opposed to bookend it with the North Melbourne chat like that we talked about earlier, like I didn't enjoy watching the North Melbourne replay at all, apart from the fact that we won it. Whereas I enjoyed watching this replay. There was a gutsy effort at the end of the game to take the game from GWS. We took the game away from them. We won the last quarter for the first time this year. We took the game away from them. I guess, if you're talking in screenwriter sense, like there was a finish to the screenplay that was enjoyable, as opposed to the North Melbourne game, which was just like
for all the reasons that I said before, the contest, the scrappy nature. If you enjoy a contest and an arm wrestle, and you can find joy in those moments, and for the reasons that you just said and we discussed earlier, I don't think it's as terrible of a game of football as some people have made it out to be. It wasn't the best game of football, but I absolutely enjoyed it. There was elements across all quarters that I found joy from, which is great, and I hope it continues.
Exactly. Yeah, keeping aside the 1 goal for in a half of football, I think I'd be interested to know how many times we've done that. So I think that's really, really impressive, feat on our part. Because generally, if we keep someone scoreless in one quarter, then they pile it on in the other. But the fact that the entire half we really restricted GWS, I think was really impressive. So a wonderful win, and one that as I said, genuinely enjoyed watching the replay for as well, which hasn't gone for too many games this year. Alrighty. So this weekend, just to look ahead before we wrap up, it's Melbourne at Adelaide Oval, mid-afternoon Sunday. Weather's not looking great, though not looking as terrible as it's been this weekend. Sunday, the 15th of June, has a maximum of 16 with a possible rainfall of anywhere between 0 and 4 millimeters. 70% chance. And the interesting part about it, the forecast is the rain is most likely later in the day, which with a 2:50 kickoff means we're probably likely to see some damp conditions for the game, which, if you take anything from last weekend's game, maybe we're going to be just fine with. But it's true winter weather conditions for the game against Melbourne this weekend. So that's what we're going to be having to deal with. Just on Melbourne, not too much injury stuff to talk about. Probably the major one is their vice captain, Jack Viney, is a test for this weekend and is likely to return, I think, based on how I'm reading things. He's had a mixture of concussions and a hand fracture, so that's his lot in life at the moment, but he's likely to come back. Big news on our front is Jason HORNE-FRANCIS. It is late in the night here, and I am, as I said to Jamie off air, I've been both sick and had a busy weekend, and I've drank a lot tonight on this podcast. So I was about to call Jason HORNE-FRANCIS Jack Lukosius, but I was looking at Jack Lukosius' name on the injury list. But Jason HORNE-FRANCIS is probably the big one that's available back for us this weekend. How are you feeling about it? Because Melbourne, to me, are a team that any given week could either beat the best team in the competition, as they have with Brisbane a couple of weeks ago, or lose, or almost beat the other best team in the competition in Collingwood. Like, I think it's a real stern test for us against a team that really, any given week, any given Sunday stuff for Melbourne, they could be the best team in the competition or could be the worst.
Well, from a Port Adelaide point of view, we're not out of the woods by getting a win against GWS in Canberra. Like, it was great. I enjoyed it. We needed it. And the narrative has already been about our next run of games and how gettable they are. But like you just said, Melbourne are a bit of a box of chocolates this year, but they've proven that when they want to play football, that they can take it to some of the better sides. So I imagine it's going to be a bit of a scrap again.
Yeah,
I'm up for it. I've watched some good games against Melbourne at Adelaide Oval that are scraps, that we get over the line in, of course. And just looking at the game from yesterday, like, Collingwood won a lot of statistical markers, but ultimately, Melbourne got the upper hand through centre clearance dominance, which led to inside 50s, which, shout out to Simon again, led to tackles inside 50. So, yeah, our work's going to be cut out from for us by in a midfield sense. But I genuinely believe that we're a good side. We're a much better side than 15th. As opposed to some other perspectives out there. So I also think at home, after a win on the road with close to our best side possible, we can absolutely win 100%. You just want to see a repeat of what they displayed on Saturday night is a 4-quarter effort. And yeah, hopefully we do enough because we just got to keep racking it up, keep playing for the jumper like we've discussed a few times recently.
Yeah. That's going to be the big thing. I mean, Melbourne are aside, I mean, there's a couple of statistical things, and we'll talk about it more on the squad show on Thursday. But like contested possessions, turnovers, like there's a few areas that we're bad in that they're better in. So that's where I like look at it and go, there's my concerns. But as we talked about with the review we've just done of the GWS game, we turned around some of those markers. So, and there was some eye test stuff to how we played that leads me to believe that hopefully there's been a bit of a reset. Like, again, we're not going to see the evidence of any, reset from the bye until we get a few games into the second half of the season and actually see some evidence of it. But from a first point of difference to be able to look at, like we've seen a better result out of that GWS game. Again, a GWS side that are statistically and ladder better than Melbourne are. So Melbourne had a good bounce back after a lean start to the season, but yeah, this is a great test for us, and especially the fact we get this at home, coming back off a win. I really, really hope we put in a competitive effort, and I will tip against Port in my tips just purely because that's what I do when it's a 50-50, but my heart, I'm actually leaning towards, like, I genuinely think, based on what I saw last week, if we bring similar levels of intent, HORNE-FRANCIS being back is huge as well. That adds to whether it be our abilities in the forward line or obviously the rotation through midfield. Like,
I was just
thinking, like,
yeah.
marking up forward, like, is going to be huge. Like, yeah, just what HORNE-FRANCIS can provide both midfield and forward is going to be huge.
Well, and if our midfield mix was good on Saturday,
yeah,
obviously the temptation or just a reality that HORNE-FRANCIS will have to be added to that mix. So it'll be interesting to see the split between forward and midfield as not to upset the apple cart, so to speak. Because yeah, our midfield seemed well balanced.
Yeah.
But you're not going to keep a HORNE-FRANCIS out of that midfield. So yeah, early prediction, obviously, for him to come back in, that's obvious. I think at the don't know what the right word is in the moment, but I think Mead's going to go out. We probably could have spoke about Mead, to be honest, as a watch. Not going to waste too much time now, but unfortunately, he's in a flat spot and he has to go back himself, like others have done, in my opinion. I don't think there'll be too many people disagreeing with me because I'm not dropping Moraes. I'm not dropping Jackson. He showed plenty in a full game, in my opinion, for a young second gamer. I also think we may see Sweet return. There was calls for him to come back last week. That didn't happen. I'm okay with that. But Max Gawn, if Visentini is just winning the position against a first gamer, I fear for what Max Gawn could potentially do. So my watch for the selections is whether Sweet gets recalled.
Yeah. I think he's just a little bit of experience and body as well. I think Visentini's still...
Yeah, that essentially that's what it comes down to for me. Yeah, just a bit of a bigger body, bigger presence.
Yeah.
And a bit more experience, like I said.
Yeah, but as you said, I think, the Hugh Jackson call is good as well because I think, we didn't even talk about him, but his debut goal was incredible. And I think he actually had a really strong first quarter before like fading out of the game a little bit. But yeah, as I get the hiccups.
I agree. Yeah. I think it's just about time to sign off. But I agree. He did drop off a little bit as the game went on, but look, I'm still willing to give him the nod over Mead because I think Mead's flat spot has been somewhat of a sustained period now.
Prolonged. Yeah, it's we had a good start to the year, but yeah, it's just
and we loved him last year. Like, yeah, one of our biggest spotlights last year across the season was Mead. So, but yeah, that happens. You need to recapture form.
Yeah, especially when it's in a position that is actually the one position we've got a lot of guys you can bring in and out in that position. So it's just, unfortunately, sometimes as talented as you are, sometimes maybe you need to go down and get some time down there and let some others come up and do the job. So, yeah.
That's right. We'll see how it happens on Thursday night.
Yeah, looking forward to the squad show. Get around the Patreon. As we mentioned, a few new ones signed up. Shout out Simon again. For your messages, and glad you survived the Canberra cold as well, because that sounds like just watching the footage, like just people just rugs and beanies. It was very classic country footy as well. But get around the Patreon. The Creed is at 1870 / patreon.com. I am hitting the wall at the end of this episode. So patreon.com / the Creed 1870. I was about to say the Creed 1870 / Patreon, which is just like not going to lead you anywhere but the dark web probably. Has been seen in our mentions over the weekend. But shout out to everyone that's involved in the Patreon. And hopefully you're enjoying the squad show. And but shout out to everyone that listens to the weekly show as well. We love that there's everyone here, but I know there's a lot more people that listen to the weekly show. So get on the Patreon one, because you're going to enjoy that too. That's about it from me.
That's it. Yeah, for the price of a 500ml can of Mother from OTR.
Yeah.
Per month.
Yeah.
As well. You get to hear us another time per week. But if you choose not to, that's fine too. We love you all. Give us feedback on the socials. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be. We love the interactions.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless you're old mate Ben,
or Bobby Long.
Yeah, that decided to let us know that the Port Adelaide Football Club was being taken back for real Australians, which is very, very racist coded. Those kind of fans are not welcome, but we know that everyone...
Time to go to sleep.
Yeah, we know that everyone that listens is are good people, so we appreciate you all. Thank you, as always, for listening. Look forward to the squad show on Thursday. Nothing more to say. Hit the stings.
Can the pair. Can the pair.
Can the pair. Can the pair.